Well, it turns out that the Iran war was just decided in terms of when it's going to start. Trump says within 2 weeks, we will be deciding whether or not we will be entering World War III. Nobody's more excited than Mark Levin, who was somewhat, someone could say, erect in his pants, all full 3 inches as he got excited, realizing Americans might die for Israel. Hell yeah, this is a great time to be alive. Man, I wish I worked at Fox News or Blaze TV right now so I could feel the tension in the room. No, I'm just kidding. He doesn't work in any of those studios. He's, I think, in like Virginia or something in his studio, protected, sheltered, with millions of dollars, like everybody else who wants this war. On top of that, it turns out that Americans aren't so excited. If you see right here, ABC News reported that there is now protests going on inside of the country as hundreds gather in New York City to protest against U.S. involvement in the Iran-Israel conflict. Except, let me tell you something, you stupid pleb, you idiot, you neocon Muslim Marxist. We're going to go to war with Iran, damn it, whether you like it or not. And if you're not wanting to go to war, that's because you love Iran. It's because you're a Muslim lover. You're a goat effer. You love Allah and you believe in young children should get married, I think, or something. I don't know what they're saying now. It's a lot of things. It's hard to keep up with, but that's what's going on. Additionally, we're also finding out that Ted Cruz is still seething after losing to Tucker Carlson. As one of our guests tonight said, in order to win or get back at Tucker, he started sharing pop culture memes, which is a testament to the IQ and maturity of his own audience. So that's pretty cool. On top of that, lastly, we have some new developments. It's Juneteenth, which means that, we're going to go over all of the Black Americans' accomplishments, such as the pyramids, penicillin, the Eiffel Tower, and Paris in 2025, which is actually not a joke. That one's real. Anyway, my name is Elijah Schaefer. It is approximately 7:09 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States. We have a great panel for you. We're going to be discussing a lot of things, including kind of preluding a little bit of what's going on tomorrow, talking about religion, talking about the state of the world. Stay with us here on another episode of The Rift, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Rumble, X, and now on YouTube. Subscribe to our new channel. Let's start the show. Heck yeah, man. I'm very, very excited here. We have a little snippet from President Donald Trump, who's weighing in on what's going on. Listen to this.
I had an issue here in Southern Nevada, availability of land. One of your policies is saying releasing more federal land, building of houses.
Yeah.
How will you enact that here in Southern Nevada? Because that is a huge issue here in Southern Nevada, and it will be in the coming years.
Well, we want to have land so we can have housing built in certain areas like this area. They don't have the housing, and we have so much land, and we want to put it to use. So we're going to have land released, and on that land, we're going to build housing. We're going to have.
Yeah, as I mentioned on the last show, it's like I feel like I don't know what's going on with Trump. One moment we say we're going to bomb Tehran, then he's like, by the way, guys, I know you guys have all been talking behind the scenes about this land release plans. We got to make sure we're building more homes. Never heard about this discussion until today, but we got to talk about it. Joining me today in the studio, welcome back for the multiple time this week, one of our contributors here today, working with us at Rift TV. Tell us who you are and why you're here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Perez. I'm a writer and commentator and, contributing here at Rift TV. So should be good. I think I'm also, we also already know I'm funded by Qatar, as we all are here. So another thing about me. Wow, thanks.
There you go. Anyway, that's how they do it. They just throw it at your face. You know what I mean?
That's how they pay us. They just throw it at us.
Yeah, the Russians just give it to Dave Rubin, but we don't. We're not Jewish enough. Anyway, joining me today as well for the first time here on The Rift. Tell us who you are, why you're here.
Yeah, my name's Ben. Go by Orthodox Luigi. I'm an Orthodox Christian apologist. One of the things that you brought up there is kind of the false dichotomy between Islam and Israel's agenda. And that's one thing that as Orthodox Christians we've been dealing with for hundreds of years, in fact, over a millennia. So I'm excited to kind of bring an Orthodox perspective to this conversation.
Well, I'm happy. Your buddy Ted Cruz was just on, and he told me that somewhere in that book, that what is it called? It's not the Quran. What do the Christians read?
The Holy Bible?
The Bible, correct. Sorry, I just thought we were supposed to talk about it, but know nothing about it. You know what I mean? I didn't even know we had to know the name of it. I thought it was just like you just say things like Christians believe, and it's like, we know in hepatitis 3, that's what God said. No, but somewhere in there he said that we have to serve the nation state of Israel because God told us, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're going to quote theology, you should probably at least know what the verse says and where you can find it. He was quoting Genesis chapter 12, where it's actually talking about Abraham. And it says that all who bless your descendants, will be blessed, and all who curse them will be cursed. But if you fast forward to Galatians, St. Paul actually interprets this verse for us, and he explicitly says the inheritors of Abraham, the seed of Abraham, singular, is Christ. And so if you reject Christ, according to St. Paul, you are not a descendant of Abraham. So therefore, the verse that he didn't even know where it's found is Genesis 12. It's not even talking about what he said he was talking about.
Shoot, last time I talked to Senator Ted Cruz, he was telling me he was getting treated for a scripture called Syphilis 69, and unfortunately, that was when he left Texas during COVID. To go to Cancun for the food. You know what I mean? That's what they do. These congressmen do. It's true. Jokes aside, I do know what the scriptures are called, by the way, and I know, as anybody would say, that we're all the same. Muslims, Christians, Jews, and that's why we need to send more money to Israel. Speaking of that, while we're in the middle of transferring our funds, my guest today, I think you've been on my previous podcast before, but you're here for the first time. Tell us who you are, why you're here. You're a bit of a legend yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jay Dyer. I'm here with the Russian agents and operatives that fund me. I'm paid in Dugan coin, which is a Soviet-backed crypto. So I don't get paid by Qatar, but I don't know which one might be more beneficial. I have to think about that some
I can
more,
just give you that.
Okay, yeah.
Congratulations,
so I might
sir.
be flipping from Russian to Qatari, but yeah, my name's Jay Dyer. I do a lot of different things. We do geopolitical analysis. We do comedy. We do debates. We do philosophy. We do it all. I got a bunch of books, and write for the Sam Hyde Show, and I host the 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show.
Let's go. All right. Let's start by talking a little bit. We're going to start with a new segment. I don't know if we actually have any graphics here for that, but we're going to do our War Watch, which is just whenever we have these ongoing segments, right? We ended the Riot Watch, War Watch, just things that are going on. And damn it, I feel like it's not America unless we're watching riots, unless we're following wars in Israel. And it's almost like you could sort of remind yourself today, you could be in 2020, 2012, 2011, 1995. It really doesn't matter what decade you want to pick or choose from, what year. It's kind of the same things going on, from Rodney King, to BLM, to Trayvon Martin, to, whatever. And also Netanyahu talking about nukes in Iran. It's the same thing every day. Let's talk about accountability here and the insidious nature of X, which is like the cesspool of what's going on here. Today, some developments. Israel was bombed. Rockets actually rained down on Israel. They're actually ballistic missiles, from my understanding. That apparently the Iron Dome can't intercept. Can I ask you guys this question? So, just like October 7th, we know that they let these paragliders come in. We understand that. We also know that it was after their own report from the IDF. We saw that the Apache helicopters were actually what caused the massive destruction. They killed in the kibbutz a lot of their own people, including those homes that were blown up with their own tanks that blew up the homes. Yes, Hamas killed a lot of people. Yes, Hamas did murder a lot of Jews that day. That is not up for debate. But they didn't come over with the weaponry to cause that kind of incendiary mass destruction. It's not the first time in history that governments have killed their own people. 9/11. I'm just kidding. Okay. But it is interesting to me that I want to know, is the Iron Dome really this bad that they can't intercept these rockets? Are these just too advanced of rockets that they underestimated the kind of firepower that Iran had? Or why the hell are they won a war and they're trying to get international, opinion on their side? Why would these rockets be hitting at such a high velocity and such extreme force and accuracy from their information and data centers to their hospitals? How are these getting in the middle of Tel Aviv and Beersheba? Because it's shocking to me.
Well, I'm no expert on military warfare tactics and techniques, et cetera, but I would say that there is the possibility that you can have a gambit where you allow certain things to happen to then perhaps get the U.S. involved. I think that if that's happening, if they're allowing some of these to get through, or they're not fully exercising, Iron Dome capabilities, it would be so that it looks like, you're not helping us. Where are you at? You've got our back, Donald. You've promised us all this over the years. So it's basically forcing the U.S.'s hand, and that's probably why, at least publicly, Netanyahu acted unilaterally, supposedly against what Trump had told him. But it's also very likely that this was planned a long time ago. I mean, these kinds of activities don't happen out of nowhere. Just like October 7th, there would be pretty significant planning. So I don't think that things are just organically, randomly happening. I think that there's probably a lot of strategy going into this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have any opinion on this. I know no one's like, except for you, Anna. I know that you are an expert in ICBM, intercontinental ballistic technology, as they call it. But I mean, like, you know, I happen to believe from a clip that I saw, I don't think we have it in here, but I watched NPR film these people, these Jewish people in Tel Aviv in front of a blown up apartment complex, asking them, how do you feel about rockets raining down in your city? Because there's still a family missing. People have died in your community. And the guy literally says, you guys can look this up. He's like, you know, we've been waiting for this war for 30 years. And, you know, we're willing to accept that, you know, if this is the kind of thing that has to happen in order for us to finally take down the regime, like, we'll basically accept ourselves as collateral damage. That's actually insane brainwashing, in my opinion. But it is further evidence that I'm like, maybe they are letting this happen. Maybe the people, everyone's in on it. Like, hey, they all kind of know you've got to let the missiles rain to justify dropping a atomic weapon on a Ford. Is it Fordow? Is that how you pronounce it? Fordow?
Fordo.
Fordow. I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay, Justin Fordow. But I don't, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think it's intentional?
Well, I absolutely do. I mean, they've been cheering on this war for so long. And I think you played the montage yesterday on the show where Netanyahu had been talking about this for years. It's like they want it to happen. October 7th, I'm actually surprised more didn't happen after that. I think the only reason it didn't actually was probably because Biden and the whole Biden administration wanted to appease their more far left base, which of course is not in favor of a war with Iran. And then of course there's people on, you know, the dissident right, like, you know, we are here where we're not in favor of a war either. But obviously, there's a lot of MAGA boomers who are okay with seeing it happen. They're okay with being dragged into this, and I honestly don't really think they realize how bad it would be and the consequences of a war with Iran. And so they're kind of just going along with it because they're told, oh well, you know, for so long they were told it's not a big deal or it's not a big issue, but it is. And not only is it a big issue, but it's something that Jews in Israel really want. They want this war. And Netanyahu does, and Jews in Israel also support this. They see it as their holy obligation almost, and America has to be swept into it too. You know, because
immigration's up in Israel right now. Have you seen that? More Americans are moving to Israel right now during the war. More Jews have done Aliyah and gone back, which shows that this war hasn't stopped them. I follow Jew news on TikTok, and they go around, and it's like funny because like they'll be like, so where are you from? Well, I'm from Philadelphia, but I just made Aliyah and I'm back here. I'm back home. And I always think it's funny. It's like those guys who have been here for thousands of years, they're the invaders, but I'm from Philadelphia and this is my home. We should blow you up. I mean, everyone knows where I stand on this. I don't know. You're Orthodox, you know, Ben, you're around here. You have your own opinion. But I do think that governments like 9/11, whether it's invited, allowed, whether they did it themselves, right? I mean, for all we know, some of this technology, the United States and Israel may have facilitated or allowed countries to sell to Iran in order for them to achieve what they wanted. And like planting the pagers or the swarm armies of the drones, like I'm just going to say, I know the United States has weapons that can take down missiles like this, and they could have released it to Israel if they wanted to. And if they didn't, it's got to be stoking a war. Maybe you have a different opinion, but I do believe it's intentional.
No, I agree with that. I actually have a point on, you brought up sort of the political divide that's happening here. I don't know if you guys have kind of felt this on X these last couple of days, but I find this internal conflict when I'm liking tweets from Bernie Sanders and AOC who are agreeing with like Thomas Massey, right? Like I just find this political divide that's happening both on the right and the left is kind of wild. It's something that a lot of us didn't really see coming. Where like this issue of Israel and this issue of their agenda is literally splitting both parties like down the middle. And so it's kind of an internal conflict that I've experienced, like when I'm liking tweets from Bernie Sanders and then I'm criticizing Ted Cruz online. It's not something I would have seen coming.
When you say Orthodox, are you saying Orthodox Jew? Because that's what Bernie wants from you. Thank you.
Yeah, I got to clarify. Orthodox Christian, not an Orthodox Jew.
No, okay, so let me show you something. This is kind of like the idiocy of what's going on here. I am dumbfounded. Like I gotta say this. I am not one of the people, like I do see people, particularly like groypers or people that would be more considered like fundamental, right? That like are like, God bless Iran when they see the bombs going off in Tel Aviv. That's not all of them. That's just some of them, right? You see people saying that, and I know a lot of it's just tongue in cheek. Like they're just, they're shit talking because they don't like Israel. But deep down inside, just say they make rape jokes and like, talk about killing women and stuff. And like, I know that humor. Okay. I get the humor side of it. I don't think they're really a lot of them are being serious. I get the internet, online thing. There are some people like online that are my friends who really actually do support Iran. I don't like seeing people killed. I don't want to see, people blown off the face of the earth. And so when someone says this, Maya, who's got an Israeli flag in her bio, like a lot of people, says, Iran just bombed a hospital in southern Israel. Isn't that a war crime? I said, yes. Also, Israel bombed 36 hospitals in Gaza, which is true, including, by the way, which is crazy. I know you're not going to be surprised on what everyone said under here. People, wow, why do you think this guy, astronaut at night, defended, Maya? That's
something about his account. I can't put my finger on it.
Me neither. I can't.
I don't know what it is.
It's like a
Looking
little
for clues. I don't know.
Yeah, but they go. There is a difference between bombing an actual hospital and bombing a military facility disguised as a hospital. And I said Iran reported that Israel was hiding missiles under the hospital.
They did this during October 7th too.
Well,
They used the same tactic. Like, well, actually, they were hiding Hamas in there.
Even the Christian hospitals where they interviewed the Christian priests, the Catholic priests that were going, there's no Hamas here. This is a Christian hospital. It's a children's hospital. Right. And what I'm trying to say is, it's funny to me. That's all I want to bring up though here to you is like, it's funny how like when Israel gets bombed, they're like, wait a second, isn't this evil to bomb a hospital? You go, yes, that's what we've been saying. And then they go, but no. The IDF said that all the hospitals have missiles under them. And you're like, wouldn't that be almost as dumb as me telling you that the mullah said that there was missiles under this? I know there's no missiles under the Israeli, hospital. And then somebody literally under this post, a pro-Iranian account said, there was military installations. It's true, next to the hospital in Tel Aviv. And I'm like, okay. Can we also just see that everyone's a bit of a bullshitter right now and that maybe people can wake up and smell the homeless here a little bit and realize that perhaps Israel's not a victim, they are a perpetrator, and it doesn't mean that it's good that their citizens are dying, but it is pretty disgusting that the Israelis are so ignorant. I don't know why.
It reminds me of the radical vegans that have this attitude that you can get rid of suffering if you get rid of all the beings. So like if we get rid of all the hospitals, if we bomb everybody, then there wouldn't be any problems with any hospitals hiding bombs. So why don't we bomb every hospital?
That's true.
In the world.
You get rid of all the hospitals and there'll be no more place to put missiles.
Exactly.
Sound
also,
logic.
What?
Sound logic. Makes sense.
Well, also, people forget too that the 1979 coup in Iran was aided by Western intelligence, just like the Ayatollah Khashoggi, who is the predecessor to Khomeini. Like he came in with British intelligence and CIA support because they saw that the Shah wasn't going to be a success. He was a failure. He was a flop. Who was the original CIA puppet in Operation Ajax when they overthrew Mossadegh, which is the first color revolution that we know of. Then they made friends with and aided the original Ayatollah Khashoggi, who was British intelligence himself, or connected to British intelligence. He was the guy who started, even though he was Shia, he started the Muslim Brotherhood chapter in Iran, the Fayadan. And that didn't work, at least at that time, with the Shah. So then British intelligence and the CIA went back to him and were like, hey, we want you now to be our dude. We'll make some deals with you. And so there's always been a kind of a back channel. This actually came out in the BBC a couple of years ago, that there was this continual back channel. Even when the Ayatollah was calling the U.S. the Great Satan, there was this back channel with Reagan and the State Department to make deals in the background. For example, oil was a big thing. So a lot of times we see this stuff in the public, but there's always been these backdoor deals, and hence why the Democrats, for example, armed Iran with billions of dollars before Trump came in. So
why? I mean, I know you kind of say, but why did they? That's kind of a weird. Like, was that for this war so they could get weapons?
It's very possible. I mean, as you know, like if you go back to Likud's strategy in terms of Oded Yanon plan in 1982. A lot of what was in the clean break strategy of Netanyahu was just mirrored from the earlier Oded Yanon plan, which is a Greater Israel project. So this has been a plan since the late 70s, early 80s. Ostrovsky talks about it in his By Way of Deception book too. So they had strategic plans for each of the surrounding areas of Israel, Lebanon, Syria, etc. This gets into why they supported radical Islam in some places like Syria, as well as places like to a degree Lebanon at times, but they also made alliances with the Phalangists, who were the right-wing Christian militias. Anyway, point being is that they've had different strategies for different areas around them, but that it does include at times funding and aiding Hamas to be a counterbalance to the PLO. So the West has a tendency and a strategy to oftentimes play both sides of conflicts. And I think in this situation, it's definitely more heavily on the Israeli side, but there's still even support for Iran as well, especially from weapons contractors, stuff like that.
Well, that's kind of okay. So that's what people don't understand. The strategies are different, but the goal is the same, which is why you wonder like why ISIS apologizes to Israel when they attack them. But ISIS will actually behead Christians. And then why does no one defend the Christians? Well, because Israel and ISIS hate the Christians. So there's sort of this unilateral, similar hatred towards Christianity, but also, realizing how is there a radical Islamic group that topples Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and then suddenly they want to join the UN, and they're dealing with President Trump, and they're putting up signs, "Thank you, Donald Trump." Have you seen that? There's like billboards everywhere in Aleppo.
The CFR back in 2012 had an article on their page. You can still find it on Wayback. They've scrubbed it, but you can find the Wayback, where they were calling for Al-Qaeda in Syria to topple Assad. So they've been talking about this for a long time. But the CFR is just reflecting what the Oded Yanan plan and the clean break strategy of Netanyahu had said in 1996.
Yeah, well, so that's this is kind of my point though. With that tweet exactly, if you're just joining the stream, make sure that you like the stream, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, guys, I'm going to tell you, this is how bad YouTube had censored us. I have a channel with 550,000 subscribers, and currently with 2,000 subscribers on the channel we just started last week, we now have more live viewers than we get on a stream with 550,000 subscribers, only 2,000 subscribers. That's how bad they ruined that channel. And I appreciate you guys for finding this one because we can't really connect them. So make sure you subscribe. And I remind you, if you're on Rumble, it's in the description. The reason why you need to take the link and save it is because this show is a bridge between the nationalist ideas that we all want people to know, to love their country, to love God, and also we're adopting a mainstream format. So we're not being super raunchy. Of course, it's an adult show. There's some innuendo. There's some fun. But you can send the YouTube link. People don't want to watch on Rumble. It's true, right? If you're already right wing, you're watching this on Rumble, but your friends and family will watch on YouTube. That's the truth. So give them the link. Send it to them, save it in your notes, and make sure you always tell people, like, hey, check out this video, check out this video. We're relying on you to make this show possible. And we do have some funding. We have, quite a bit here to start out, but it will run out, and we have to make this show profitable. And it's only going to be profitable if you guys help us get back to the levels where we were before YouTube shut us down. So thank you for supporting us. I wanted to go to Ben here. I kind of want to get your opinion. This is kind of crazy, even from an Orthodox view. I am so freaking dumbfounded at this recent development where actually this is Jay Dyer. If you can go to this tuned in, Ted Cruz shared this response, right, to not knowing the population of Iran, and he shared this meme. What is the population of the Death Star, to Luke Skywalker, who, by the way, kissed his sister, but based? Okay, no, but I don't know. It's an Arkansas thing. No, he shared this, and everyone was, using this. You can make up what you want from it. I had already signed on this going, we talked about this yesterday. We used to laugh when, students were asked tough questions by Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk. And then when asked where communism worked, they said in Star Trek, that was a real thing. And we thought that was so funny. Everyone slopped it up. They used pop culture references to try to adjust their understanding of the world. But when Ted Cruz does it, who's gotten fatter every year, it's very interesting. Now, Jay Dyer jumped in and said Ted Cruz is to appeal to his evangelical boomer audience using children's sci-fi because that's the maturity level of evangelical boomers. To support the boomers, even take the boomer out of that myself, I don't know who's more responsible for the support of what's going on here. As Tucker said it, Fox exists to take advantage of elderly, patriotic elderly people. Why is it that the evangelical church seems to fall for everything, for feminism, for homosexuality, for, this Zionism? Like, we're not talking about boomers. I know you're saying that, but it's like I see evangelical guys my age. That's like most pastors are like 28 to 35, and they're wearing their skinny jeans. You can see their bulge. My voice is like, why can you see a pastor's bulge? It's so inappropriate. You see their bulge. They're wearing some big T-shirt and a chain. And they're like, guys, we're gonna send. I went to a church that did this. We did 2 tithes. I am not joking. It was Calvary Chapel. 1 for the church and 1 to send to Israel. Mm-hmm. What the hell's going on here?
Well, I mean, I think at this point, like, we all know about the Rothschilds funding the Schofield Bible and how this has impacted, modern evangelicalism through dispensationalism and the geopolitical support of the modern nation state of Israel. I mean, it's a classic word concept fallacy, obviously, to associate a modern nation state with a biblical nation, which Ted Cruz was actually ridiculing Tucker yesterday on X for saying, oh, Tucker believes that when it says Israel in the Bible, it's not talking about Israel. And it's like, no, Tucker believes that when it says Israel in the Bible, it's talking about a Hebrew nation in the Old Testament and not a nation state that was invented in 1948. So we actually see in Apostolic Christianity, Roman Catholicism, and Eastern Orthodoxy and Oriental Orthodoxy, like you just don't see like this infiltration of dispensationalism. We completely reject that theology. And so as a result, we're able to stand against sort of these agendas, these geopolitical agendas where they're leveraging our religion. They're leveraging our religion for a geopolitical agenda, and that's disgusting.
All right, so let me play this here. So Americans perhaps are not that happy about this. They're actually protesting. You see Randy Fine, you see Mark Levin. They're all out in full swing. Before we talk about that, though, I do want to remind you guys something very important. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about why people don't literally have the balls to stand up. Do you know why we talk about it and we say having the balls? Well, first of all, because it used to mean like being a man, right? And what does that mean, being a man? Because obviously it's like, well, what, the balls, sperm production, yeah, all this stuff. But what are we talking about? We're talking about testosterone production, right? We're talking about that's what makes you strong. And so like what happens when you want to get rid of the strength of a man? You castrate them. You take their balls off. And that takes away their ability to fight. That's what nations used to do when they conquered. Now, unfortunately, our balls are not being removed. There's a lady in the room, so I'll be somewhat nice. But we are being chemically castrated. There's a war against our testosterone, and it's remarkably low. I have a friend who was 19 years old who used to work for me back in the day, got his testosterone tested. It was at 287 or something like that. It used to be like, at that age, you would be around 13 to 1400. It's gotten so low that the medical community changed the standard for testosterone to somewhere between like 400 to 800 being normal. It's that bad. Right now, the only way that you can change your testosterone levels is by two ways. You have to change your lifestyle. I'll never sell you snake oil. I'm never going to say, take this pill, it's going to change your life. You got to be healthy. You can't drink too much. You've got to make sure you're going to the gym. These are important things, but it's not going to be enough. You got to supplement as well. Either you're going to go ahead and inject TRT into your ass, which of course has its own side effects, it's expensive, or you can use a sublingual liquid like Man's Edge. Now, the reason why you can't take pills is because your digestive system naturally breaks down NO2, fenugreek, IGF, these growth factors and these natural ingredients that are meant to stimulate, and they provenly stimulate your testosterone increase by up to 46%. However, when you use the patented carbon delivery system that was made by Americans for Americans under your tongue, this is the easiest way, as you know. I mean, I used to do ecstasy back in the day. You put it on your tongue, you get high as hell. But it's true, because it's right. You got the blood, and it goes right into your body. You could technically drip this down your butthole, too. Don't advise it. Not saying I've tried it, but don't do it. So I would say this. Pick one of these bottles up. The best part is that for my viewers, they gave the best deal they've ever given. It's buy one, get one free on auto ship. And the reason why is because you want to make sure you're taking this every single day. It's very important. Plus, the best part is you get an additional 10% off with my promo code Elijah. And they said they didn't want to do that because that gave it at cost, and they technically would lose money with shipping. But I told them, well, if you believe in your product and it's on auto ship, do you not believe they won't cancel? Do you not believe that they'll continue on buying your product? And apparently it's working out pretty damn well, and everyone's continuing to buy the product. One of you guys use this, and you said you've been able to go now like 3 or 4 rounds in bed with your wife since you started taking this. You've gotten your energy back. So the results are in. It's not going to happen overnight. You got to take it consistently for a few months. It's true. Pick up a bottle today, right now, at ElijahIGF1.com, ELIJAH, IGF, the number 1.com, promo code Elijah. That's ELIJAH for up to 60% off on auto ship. Check this out.
Trump saying tonight that the U.S. may or may not join Israel in attacking Iran. The president saying, quote, "I'd like to make a final decision 1 second before." Iran warning that if the United States does get involved, it will retaliate, quote, wherever we find targets. And tonight in Manhattan, hundreds of people gathered in Midtown to protest this conflict. Eyewitness News reporter Stefan Kim was there.
What do we do? On the steps of the New York Public Library, where all ideas are welcome, there was disagreement, a lot of it. Hundreds who denounced war on Iran clashed with a handful of pro-Israeli counter-protesters.
I'm in touch personally again, and my organization represents Iranian Americans who are watching all their family and friends in Tehran be evacuated, who are seeing car bombs go off in Tehran, who are seeing hospitals blown up, media buildings blown up, gas stations. This is much, much broader of an attack than simply targeted strikes on the nuclear program.
This, as sources tell ABC News, President Trump is getting comfortable with the idea of taking out Iran's nuclear facility, the Fordo fuel enrichment plant. It would not be just one strike on the facility, it would be several. The source adds, there is now a movement to get ready for this. The president's position on a potential attack comes as the Israelis discovered they did not take out all air defenses in Iran as they had previously thought, adding to concern. Israel has been lobbying for more support because only the U.S. has a 30,000-pound bunker buster capable of reaching Iran's deeply buried nuclear site.
I have ideas as to what to do, but I haven't made a final. I like to make the final decision 1 second before it's due. I've been saying for 20 years, maybe longer, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
But several Trump loyalists and some officials from both sides of the aisle are pushing back.
We don't need to escalate in Iran. That doesn't make anyone in the Middle East safer, and it certainly doesn't make the United States.
I love lesbians telling me about what I'm supposed to be thinking. But I want to go to you
not
guys.
Wrong, though.
Yeah,
not
but
wrong about that.
Isn't it weird? Do you find yourself the weirdness of like, what do you think about that? I mean, we're kind of like on the side a little bit of like Rashida Tlaib and like see Massey and AOC like teaming up. It's like once again, it's kind of weird to have ethics above party, right? To be like anti-interventionist warfare, regardless of who's supporting it. I don't care if the neocons are Dems or Republicans. But this idea with hearing all this, right? This idea that he's going to start the war whenever he feels like it, and that Americans, he's going to do it within 1 second. Doesn't that violate the idea that, I mean, how many weeks does he have to be in a place before he has to get congressional approval to remain? It's like several weeks, right?
I don't need any of that. Probably the best, maybe. Probably the best. Last second, probably.
Yeah, 1 second. What do you think? And what do you make of this? Because that doesn't make me feel good as an American. I don't feel secure.
No, and I think that they have every intention of escalating this conflict. I think what it is I said this yesterday, but what the administration is trying to figure out is how they can break the news to the American people, if you will. Because for so long, Trump kind of prided himself on this idea that he is an anti-war president. And he technically isn't. He's a peace through strength president, which is different than being someone who's an isolationist or somebody who just doesn't want to get involved in war. And so because of that, I think people misinterpreted that as, oh, that means we're not going to get involved in any wars. That's not really true. And in fact, we talked about the funding that he received on the show already from, Miriam Mandelson and several other, prominent Jews who want to see him take the Zionist position. So it's now a matter of how will they go about breaking the news to the American people. And what Christians need to understand in this country is that this war would not benefit you in any way. And I want to go back to that. I think you brought it up, Elijah, earlier, where it's that nobody on either side of this conflict is on the side of Christians. And somehow, Christians are the ones that have to save the day at the end. We're the ones that have to step in and take a side. And of course, that side is being pushed upon us is the side of Israel. But in no way do Christians benefit from this war. And that's the most concerning part, because we're the ones who kind of have to pay the price, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know if you agree with that, but I feel like the idea this is escalating, it makes me wonder, who do our politicians serve? And I want to ask you, if you're watching this right now, if you're watching on Rumble, if you're one of the 2,000 people there, or a few hundred are watching on our new YouTube channel, make sure you like the video, you subscribe. And I want to know in the chat, one's in the chat if you agree with me, two's in the chat if you think I'm wrong. I'm going to go to Ben here. But what I have seen exemplified is that our politicians, and including Trump, who I voted for 3 times, and I believe won 3 times in the election, seem to be more concerned with how Jewish people are treated, with how Israel is treated, and what goes on in that country than they are about Americans, right? So they care more about Israelis than Americans. They care more about Jewish people than Christians. They care more about the nation of Israel than the nation of America itself. And they care more about using our money to protect their interests rather than ours, even at the expense of ours. And it's very clear in our country that our nation does not serve the God of the Bible, does not serve Jesus Christ, that our nation is serving the donors of AIPAC. They are serving the donors of the Adelsons. And I don't believe it's all demonic, but I do believe that to mock and to deride and to spit in the face of a Protestant nation that once, was known for its work ethic, that was known for fighting for that independence to be able to worship God, and we drove ourselves to excellence. Let me ask you this, and I'm going to go to you on here. If you're right, Ted Cruz, that those who bless Israel, that God will bless them, then ask yourself why, when we started blessing the current nation state of Israel in 1949, as Joel Webbin said today, why did we get abortion? Why did we get feminism? Why did we get AIDS, if it actually exists? Why do we get homosexuality? Why do we get endless wars and cold wars that we couldn't win? Why in the world, if we are so blessed, are our streets full of trash, our cities are unsafe to walk in, our marriages are falling apart, our divorce is at no fault? This does not sound like a blessing. It feels like a curse and a burden. You tell me what's happened. If that's a blessing, then damn it, you're more than confused, and I cannot help you. But I do feel like there's something wrong in our country, something very off. I don't know who we're serving, but it doesn't feel like we're serving God.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. This shouldn't even be controversial. Like, in the sense that, like, I know guys that consider themselves very common sense. Maybe they're just nominal Christians who are tired of our priorities in this country not being America. It's everybody but America where the priorities are. And I kind of tweeted as a joke yesterday. I was like, I finally figured out a way to trick Ted Cruz into prioritizing Americans, and I just titled a map of America Israel. Like, I mean, it's like, look, like, all we ask for as Americans is to be prioritized. Like, why? To your point, we're being prioritized below an Israeli nation state, right? Where our funding is going. I mean, the very same week where we had natural disaster here in the continental U.S., you had funding being sent the same week to Israel. So all we ask, even just the common sense American position, is, look, can you prioritize us as a people and as Christians?
I was going to go to you. So I was drinking my coconut water, my absurdly large, I thought it was a small coconut water. I pulled it out and I was like, oh, it's like the conflict in the Middle East. You think you're going to get one thing, you get another. It's like a bait and switch. But I do feel like on the Christian side, because you guys are Christians, someone asked me actually in the chat, I think some of your guys' chatters, shout out to the fans here of Mr. Luigi. I hear Mario Wario's in the chat, as well as Princess Peach. Yeah, I don't know.
We got a whole army for him, actually.
Yeah, it's very nice. And then also Jay Dyer, and you got a lot of people on YouTube as well. Shout out to you guys. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys subscribe. One thing that this show does do, they ask, am I a Christian? And I think we like to be honest here. I was a devout Christian in my life at one point. I got disillusioned when I fell into some patterns of sin, and the evangelical church could not help me. And I'm not this bitter guy who's like, the church wronged me. It was like no matter where I went, I got a bad answer after a bad answer, and the advice they gave me nearly ruined my entire life, actually. And I realized if I had not listened to any of the advice of these people, I would be in a better place. And then it was kind of like they just kind of were like, oh, well, you made a mistake, so now you're in the bad corner, and now you can't ever do anything for God. And it was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, mind my language, but also fuck you guys. Then I'm not going to live like this. I'm just going to go live on my own. And then what happens? You go live on your own, you get destroyed. The devil just kind of like rakes you back in because a sheep without a shepherd gets lost very, very easily among wolves. So I'm trying to find my way back home. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying to understand. But I don't know. I've only known the Protestant, evangelical package. And so I just started attending a Catholic church about 2 months ago. And it's a diocese that's just fantastic. But for some reason, I still continually wonder if orthodoxy is the correct way, just because the veneration of Mary that we do is so weird when we bow to Mary and some weird stuff in the church, which I don't participate in. So anyway, that's where it's at. But you, as somebody who's a veteran Orthodox, I find it to be almost mysterious and quite commendable, because I wouldn't call myself a man of God, but I would say you would be, or at least someone like myself would respect that. But as a man of God, what do you make of the fact that, the evangelicals, the Protestants are saying that we are being blessed? This is what blessing looks like. And that's because we serve the nation state of Israel. I feel like something's really off with this evangelical Christianity. Something's very off. But what is it?
Well, you're missing a golden opportunity with your product that you sell. You mentioned yourself, Pastor's Bulge. All you got to do is start an evangelical relationship ministry. It's called Pastor's Bulge. There you go.
Yeah, at every it comes equipped with lasers and smoke machines, haze machines. No, but what is it that's off? Like this whole evangelical right-wing nationalism thing. Like, what's wrong theologically? What's disconnected?
The disconnect is that for most evangelicals and Protestants, there's a radically deficient idea of what the church is. And the church is a historical entity. If you're divorced from the church as a historical entity, you're going to default to making something like the nation state of Israel your sort of proxy church. So evangelicals treat that as if it's sort of like that's God's chosen people, that's God's entity on earth. No, it's the historic church that Matthew 21:43 says is the kingdom of God that was taken from the Jews because they rejected the Messiah, given to a nation producing the fruits thereof, which is the largely Gentile church. It began largely Jewish in the book of Acts, but it eventually becomes a historically largely Gentile entity. And that's why so many places in the book of Psalms and the book of Isaiah, when it predicts the kingdom, when it predicts the church, it's a Catholicos, it's a Catholic entity. I'm an Orthodox Catholic Christian. So that's why in the early centuries of the church, the nations began to convert and worship the God of Israel, Yahweh. That's a fulfillment of all of these Psalms and all these places in Isaiah that predict the largely Gentile church. So you can't divorce the church from history, but evangelicals are severed from the historic church, so they become a kind of de facto worshiper of Israel as the church. And like Luigi said, the foundation of Israel is the Rothschild family. It's Edmund Rothschild. It's people who wanted to help eventually, maybe not Edmund himself, but Chaim Weizmann, Theodor Herzl, Moses Hess. They were atheist socialists. Some of them had religious ideas, but they wanted to set up a utopian socialist project in the Middle East. It had nothing to do with God. So why would God's nation be refounded by utopian atheist socialists like Moses Hess? It makes no sense. Unless it's a geopolitical decision, which has nothing to do with necessarily, unless it's the end times or something like that. Like that doesn't directly have anything to do with the promises in the Bible about cursings and blessings. Because if you look at the book of Revelation in chapters 2 and 3, when Jesus speaks to the churches in Asia Minor, he uses the language of cursing and blessing, which is a covenant language out of Deuteronomy and Leviticus that God spoke to Israel. He said, if you, blessing and cursing, right? The very thing that Ted Cruz is citing in Genesis 12, right? If you bless Israel, I'll bless you. If you curse Israel, I'll curse you. That's transferred over to the church in Revelation 2 and 3. Jesus is saying, you're my nation. If you obey me, church, you're blessed. If you don't, you get your lampstand taken away, you're cursed.
Okay, because let me get your thoughts. That's what I'm sensing. So I'm kind of like stripping my theology, what I know, aside. I'm like, what it feels like, it's like, okay, if we started blessing Israel in the 1940s, then we should be blessed. So then someone's like, oh, that means because we're supporting Israel, that's why we're cursed. I'm going, what else started happening around that time? We moved away from God. We moved towards what? The UN, this globalism, this lack of nationalism, lack of identity with God, towards this, to move back to Babylon. So I don't know what it is, but to me, it seems like maybe it's not directly because we started supporting Israel, but it's like you said, we started supporting anything else except for God.
One last point. I apologize. I forgot this too. Your point about blessing and cursing in terms of 1948 and what do we support? Think how silly this is. So like Islam is one of the largest religions in the world, maybe the largest now, I forget, between Catholics. But if it's over 1 billion, so would we conclude then that Satan is growing and blessing Islam? All the Islamic nations have the money and weapons that they have from Satan. But wait a minute, we actually armed Iran in part. So are we the Satan that's also arming Iran? It's just arbitrary to say that all the curses that we have in America are because of, supporting Israel or not supporting Israel. We support the opposition as well at times. So it's arbitrary.
We armed the Taliban.
Yeah, exactly.
And we armed ISIS. Hillary Clinton did.
Exactly.
But you know what I'm saying? So what is it? Is it because it feels like directly when we left God that we are being cursed, and that's why I see the idea of bless those, I'll bless those who bless thee. When our nation decided that, the FBI is making Catholic priests and Christian mothers at designating them as domestic terrorists. Christian nationalism is now one of the greatest threats, according to the FBI. To me, that's why I feel like we are collapsing, and reminding you, we don't care about the Christians in Gaza. America doesn't care about the Christians anywhere. They're not even talking about the Christians in Israel. There's a bunch of Christian sites and Christians in Israel, and it's only about the Jews and the Jewish people. To me, that's kind of a spit in the face of God himself.
Yeah, the Roman Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church in the United States right now is engaged in a legal battle because our priests are no longer being protected through the sacrament of confession. They're being forced by the state to disclose information they receive through confession. I mean, you bring up the strong point about the Christian, really like the Christian Holy Land. I mean, the fact that we have in Israel, in Jerusalem, we have the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is right down the street, by the way, from the Western Wailing Wall. And what I find shocking is that all these, American politicians who call themselves Christians, we see pictures of them at the Western Wailing Wall. We almost never see photos of them at visiting the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which shows exactly where their priorities lie. But I also want to point out, to your point about sort of like the theological implications here too. I don't think the Protestant reformers intended this with Sola Scriptura, but what Sola Scriptura really allowed for was a hijacking of Christianity, which is exactly what we've seen, particularly in the last 70 some years, is a hijacking of Christianity. Because with Sola Scriptura, well, we can just interpret the Bible however you want to. To Jay's point, we've divorced ourselves from the historical church, right? The church that was founded by Jesus Christ and was present in every single century. As Orthodox Christians, we can point to a random century and say that was the church right there. Can an evangelical do that? No. Just like a Mormon, they think the church fell away for hundreds and hundreds of years. They can't do that. So when you divorce yourself from the historical church, it opens yourself up to be hijacked by geopolitical agendas, which is exactly what we've seen.
And to highlight that hypocrisy, it's like Ted Cruz will go on and talk to Tucker about the fact that it's fine if Israel spies on the U.S. and does espionage within the U.S., but then they cry all day long about China and Russia and espionage. It's total hypocrisy, right?
Yeah, it does. It does feel, because I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but it does feel like this interesting thing. When Trump says something like this doesn't sound like people who are looking for God to lead them. Listen.
Regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president.
Yeah, also I love too? Women leading us. You know what I mean? I really do feel like that's a great sign that we're in a good position as a country, because usually countries led by women, like Germany with Angela Merkel, she did a great job there. Am I right, everybody? Am I right? Yeah, okay. Well, that's a dumb joke. But no, I mean, moving on from this, I want to talk a little bit about this. I want to get into some of the riots, get into some of what's going on here with the immigration stuff and developing. I have watched Trump go back and forth and back and forth. And like you said, when people will serve something, what I have seen is this. This is maybe a spiritual maturity side of me, is when I was falling away from the church, I started making politics my God, right? So I started, I look back at some of the content that I was making. I wasn't thinking through my worldview. I was assumed that I knew what I knew, and I just accepted everything that came with it. So I made a famous video, did really well. And when you're doing 500,000 views on YouTube on a video, it's considered pretty successful. And it was why Trump is the most pro-LGBT president. And I went around and proved to everyone that he promoted homosexuality. And I thought I did something, I was like, I did something. Because I always thought it was a little cringe gay shit, but that was one of the talking points, was he was homophobic. So I needed to defend Trump against the negative talking point. I didn't support it, but that's ironic, right? So I don't support something, and instead of getting mad and being like, I'm mad Trump that supports this, I had to make content that it was good that he supported it. And that is because I put over ethics and morals and worldview my tribalism and cultism to a politician, which I believe to be a sin and incorrect, but it's more of ignorance, not intentionality. I wasn't doing it on purpose. At the time, I thought I was doing good. I thought I was helping my country and my people, and now I realize it was moronic. I feel like that's a lot of people still with Trump, and when you get out of that side of things, because I'm not like Glenn Beck or Mark Levin, or I was never Trumper, but I'm like, okay, there is an actual cult around this guy, and you see Sean Farash, and you see Laura Loomer, and you see these people who all share similar heritage, really just kind of I told the truth at the riot, which we'll talk about in a moment. All I stated was that the U.S. Marine Corps had made contact with U.S. citizens. That's all I stated. which is a big deal. That the military is physically making contact with citizens. That's a big development. He's accusing me of like working for MSNBC or whatever, and trying to undermine Trump because I reported the truth about what's happening. I'm looking at the MAGA group from the outside now and going, these people are fucking retarded. A lot of them, right?
A lot of them, yeah.
And I, it's not that I don't support Trump, but even a friend of mine goes, why are you counter signaling Trump? A good friend, smart guy, smarter than me, and he's one of my favorite people. So I'm not shit talking him. I'm going, cause he's wrong here on this issue. And it's like, yeah, but didn't you vote for him? We got to support him. And I go, dude, we're in the problems of our country because everybody is fighting for morality while not changing their actions in their own lives to live to the standard of God's called them to. And two, because they're tribal and they're justifying their morality towards their commitment towards a group and not God. And it's like, I don't want to fall into that, but it's hard because I built my whole audience being loyal to MAGA. And now they're all like, oh, you're changing, you're a libtard. Tim Pool on his show called me a communist and a socialist. Like, it's a call me on the show. I'm like, dude, I'm just asking the truth.
Yeah, well, I kind of experienced something similar because I remember starting to really seriously question Trump during the Operation Warp Speed situation. I was like, okay, well, what's going on here? People kept twisting themselves into pretzels trying to justify what he was doing. Oh, well, he didn't know, he was misled by globalists. At what point do you just say, well, no, we have to hold him accountable for this. He is the president of the United States. I feel like there's a breaking point, or there was a breaking point recently with a lot of the MAGA base, people like you, people like me, probably most of us here. Like, I think we probably experienced that along with a lot of people on the right. And I think part of it was the vaccine. I think another part of it was seeing him start to sell out to certain donors that he promised to not sell out to. And then, of course, that also was in line with his support of things that he said he wasn't going to support, like the war and or war in general. And I think really, like, at first, the argument that people came up with was, well, the media is so unfair to him. So at the very least, we can be on his side. That's what a lot of boomers would tell me whenever I would criticize something he would do. But, if he's not going to be loyal to us, to his base, because he hasn't been with a lot of the promises he's made, why should we be loyal to him? And I think that's what
when Charlie turns on you, you got to question yourself. When Charlie turns on Trump, maybe he is splitting his base. It's Charlie Kirk.
Well, and also,
for him.
He talked a lot about the forgotten man in 2016. And this is a really big issue because what did he mean by that? Well, he meant white Christians. He meant white people, predominantly Christians. And the reality is in the most recent campaign, in the 2024 campaign, he didn't really stay true to that promise at all. There was a lot of kowtowing to minorities. There was a lot. And even during his first term, the talking points on the right were always, well, we have to focus on the black unemployment rate and how low it is, and the Hispanic unemployment rate and how low it is. He never really stayed true to helping the people that he claimed he was going to help. He keeps talking about minorities. He keeps talking about Jews. He keeps talking about everybody else. What does that tell you? And I think a lot of these people in the MAGA base need to sort of divorce themselves from this idea that he is still the guy that they voted for in 2016 and start saying, actually, he's not really fighting for the forgotten person, the forgotten Americans anymore. And I think there were a lot of signs along the way, but some people they still think of him as that guy. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, and I think I want to hear both the gentlemen's response to this, because this is a good discussion, right? I think we got to talk about the morality side of this. I want to hear from my Orthodox brothers. We're going to be doing like a special on Orthodoxy tomorrow. So if you want to tune in at 7 p.m. tomorrow, we're going to do a Friday special on just, like, we're going to be going through a lot of things. And I think it's going to be a really, really great in-depth. I'm hoping it will be an introduction to why Orthodoxy is the correct church from two people who believe it. Not a debate. It's not to be like, oh, why are you wrong? But like also a little bit of why the other ones are not the best path, or could they work, right? Like Billy Graham said, we all can get to heaven. Universality, is that even real? I don't know, but I want to tell you guys something very important. Later on the show, I'll tell you how you can win this new Kindle for free. You can win it this Sunday on our book club, but I'll tell you at the end of the show. But right now I want to talk to you about Van Man. Okay, this product is very easy for me to sell. Part of the reasons why we haven't been getting new ads, we've had the same ads, we're getting paid for these ads. It's because you guys like the products and you keep paying for them. Why? Because we find good products and we stick with them, and it's great. Van Man has good products. Do you have Van Man on your show? you should get Van Man on the show. You know why? Because it's all the products your wife uses, and you probably don't use much, without all the harmful chemicals, and it's also even the packaging they follow through. Like, there's no plastics; it's just like metal and
Do
glass.
they make mascara for me?
That's
For
J.D.
men?
Vance bought the rest of it.
Okay.
It's all gone. No, but for you, so what it is?
Jay has a detailed skincare routine, actually.
Does he really?
Yeah.
It's a goth skincare
Yes.
routine. Yeah.
He's like, slit my wrist and call me gay.
You don't get
I
skin
sleep in
like
a coffin.
that.
I sleep in a
without skincare
coffin. I
routine.
gotta have mascara.
You know what? No, but you know what? This is good because listen, this is a tallow balm, and what this is like can be used as for lips, for chapped lips. It moisturizes your face, and the cool thing is it's not gay. So it's like you don't have to buy something called like Effervescence by Floral Now. It's just called Van Man. There's nothing wrong with a van. You're a man, but it's good for women too. My mom, my mother-in-law uses it. Now, what happened is that I had a bunch of free products given to me by them, and my mother-in-law was over, and then she left back to Australia, and they were all gone. And I'm like, where did they all go? She took them with her. So meaning whether you're a woman, you're older or younger, and this their products, we can use them on our children who are infants and babies. Why is this product used on a baby? Well, babies get diaper rash. They get cracked skin. You ever seen how fat their little arms are? So cute and little and so billowy. This is beef tallow. Now, it sounds weird to you, but it's been used for thousands of years to moisturize. Plus, in order to make it smell good and have an incredible texture, they've added honey and essential oils, so only natural products. Plus, you can get their tooth powder. So it's not like toothpaste, because some of that gum and stuff in the toothpaste isn't good for you. It has no fluoride. It has none of the other harmful chemicals and binding agents. That's amazing. They have aluminum-free deodorant. And my top one for the summer, I live in Florida. I'm not getting younger, is I use their zinc sunscreen that has no carcinogens in it. So I know you guys don't love ads, but I'm telling you guys, if you get all the products you have, go get some sunscreen this summer for your kids. Isn't it nice? Like, I can use one product on my wife who's breastfeeding, my children, and myself. I don't have to worry if it's going to get into the milk or if it's going to get into the kids' bloodstream. It's all quality stuff at vanman.shop, vanman.shop/ELIJAH, promo code Elijah for 10% off. Check it out. All right, so back to what we were talking about here. I do want to know. I really do want to know this. Is what we're experiencing right now with people wanting to fight this war and get involved in this war and fighting for? Is this purely a political issue of like neocons versus isolationists, as Mark Levin said? Or is it what I'm feeling, that there's a lot of this is about a spiritual sickness in our country, that is a lack of discernment, a lack of understanding, that, we are blinded by politics, by these things, and that maybe some people like Tucker, like Charlie, some of it maybe their spiritual intuition going, hey, this is not what's good for us. We need to separate good from tribalism, good from loyalty to people, and be loyal to God and to his people, and, try to do what's in their best interest. And I sense that there is a division going like that, even myself, where I'm like, it feels demonic, it feels satanic that people are trying to get us in this war. It feels sick to my stomach that people want Americans to die at all for this cause. Are we in a spiritual sickness? What is this?
Yeah, I would say it's idolatry. Like you said, if the nation leaves the true God, then by default, the state kind of steps in, becomes a form of God, a deity. The people make politics a god, like you're talking about. You're no longer then principled. You're actually just a cult of personality, and you're part of the party, right? So it might as well be a communist, because in communism, the party is God. Well, is Trump God? Is the GOP God? No. So I think, I liked a lot of what Trump did. He did a lot of good things, but also if you're principled, you're not in a cult, you can step back and say, this is wrong. Worksheet wrong. This wrong, right? And Tucker's been pretty consistent, I think, with the takes that he's had, the critiques that he's had. And I usually end up in agreeing with him. So I think that, he illustrated this very well in that takedown of Ted Cruz, that it's not denying America and Trump, and it's not being a traitor to be principled, right, and have a consistent basis as to why we shouldn't go into war over this stuff. It's just being principled.
Ben.
Oh, gosh. I mean, absolutely. To answer your question as far as the spiritual sickness, I mean, I think, politics in many ways is going to be downstream, right, from spiritual health, right? And so for a nation that has rejected the God that they founded themselves on, right, you can start to understand why we're starting to see those downstream effects, in the geopolitical realm. And so, for us as Orthodox Christians, we truly believe that, the political change, it has to happen in the hearts of the people, right? And to Jay's point here with Tucker, all Tucker is doing is being a faithful Christian. I love what he did there when he asked Ted Cruz about the passage in the Bible. He's like, I'm a Christian. Teach me what the Bible says, because you just quoted it. So teach it to me. Help me understand it as a Christian. What am I supposed to believe as a Christian about Israel? And of course, Ted Cruz couldn't answer that question.
Yeah, it is weird. And I want to try to transition topics here because this is our War Watch. It's a thing I'm passionate about, guys. And I want you to know, if you're new here watching, like I always mention, make sure that you give a follow, but also know that one of the main reasons why I feel like God has given us a gift here with this Project Rift, if you don't understand what it is that I come from Con Inc. I've worked extensively for years at Blaze. I've worked with Fox. I've made a movie with Fox before as a producer. I was in it, done Daily Wire, all this stuff. And there's one thing that I always noticed is that, they give you a lot of money and damn it was fun. But there's things you can't say, right? Now, of course, we're on YouTube and stuff. There's things that we may have to be smart how we talk about them. We may have to be intelligent the way that we word ourselves. That's called being a mature person. It's called being an adult and understanding the times that you're in. There's nothing wrong about that. But, I don't want to live in a world where we're saying unaliving yourself. I hate that, right? I don't want to live in a world where we say some people, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, can't we just be honest? And we want to be, but what I realize is that a lot of people that are honest get put on an island and they don't take themselves seriously. And the one thing that the other people have is they have good production quality, they have good guests, they fly people out, they do all the fun stuff, and they take themselves seriously. So this was, hey, let's take the ideas, the right-wing ideas that we know and love, the ones that God wants us to know, the things that are good for our nation, that the conservative establishment won't touch, the guests that they don't like to have on, or then they intentionally put them on a show where they can't say a lot, or they give them only a 5-minute snippet on Fox and you have nothing to say. We want to be the opposite. And so we will have guests like RFH on. Not your guys' favorite, I know. But we also have Jay Dyer on, which of course everyone loves. So that seems to be the thing.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying there's a bunch of Jay. I think a bunch of your viewers are in the chat. But
that's true.
And Ben too. Don't we give a little air horn for
Who
Ben?
is RFH? No, I'm curious who
Radfem Hitler.
I don't know.
She's a feminist that we had on the last week, and some of the guys were just pissed off as hell. But I was gonna say, so it's really cool that we can talk about this stuff. And we were back in the riots, and I said, people said Rift wasn't gonna be successful. Went back on the field one time for the riots, and we already got a licensing deal with Fox News again. Like I don't know how it's working out, but it's because you guys are supporting. So I just want to remind you, thank you. I know this is gonna go places, maybe not up, but it'll go somewhere. So thank you very much for watching. I want to transition here for a moment. This is quite interesting. People are saying, today, Iran said on the news, this is my transition, that allies have asked them if there's a strike on Iran, if they're okay to join the war. And Iran said that we have allies who are willing to strike. Pakistan said that they would nuke Israel. And today, Russia actually tuned in for the first time that I've heard of and said, don't even think about Iran. Moscow is fuming over Israel's strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, especially Bushehr, where hundreds of Russian workers are still stationed. Russia's foreign ministry didn't hold back, saying absolutely unacceptable and extremely dangerous. Maria Zakharova warned we would likely to especially warn Washington against military intervention. If the U.S. jumps in, things could go from bad to nuclear fallout fast. So I just want to remind people as we transition that this is serious. And as much as we know that it wasn't really a shot of some guy that started World War I, that's what they told us. And they will tell us this is what started World War III. And I'm not an alarmist, but if they want it, they will get it. And I'm saying that, a regional war could turn into something very, very, very serious. So going on to the other, let's transition here to immigration. I think this is very important here. I want to talk about immigration from a political standpoint and a religious standpoint, because God wants us to accept the immigrant, you know what I mean? Because Jesus said remember when Jesus visited the Statue of Liberty and inscribed on there with his finger, they were trying to stone the immigrant, and he went, and then they looked and it said, give us your heavy laden, and you remember that story?
Yeah, second
it's
Leviticus,
a big statue of Mary, isn't it?
Leviticus?
Yeah, second Leviticus. Yeah, I remember that.
And that's a big statue of Mary, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah,
I remember
so,
that. That was a great story. immigration has kind of taken a backseat with the Iran situation, and a lot of the Trump supporters are like, see, he's going to take out all of the 20 million immigrants, and he's doing this all for cover. I don't think that that's true, but Tom Homan weighed back in on what's going on. Listen to this.
What do you say to farmers who are growing increasingly concerned that immigration enforcement is going to hurt their ability to do their jobs and thus hurt the U.S. economy more broadly?
Well, first of all, there's a right way and wrong way to hire workers. There are legal programs that bring farm workers in. Second of all, I've been saying for years, Congress needs to address this. But because Congress failed to address it doesn't mean we ignore it. I mean, it's illegal to hire, knowingly hire an illegal alien. But like I just talked about a few minutes ago, worksite enforcement operators, and it's just like at-large operators, we're going to base them on priority, right? For those we have a criminal nexus of trafficking, of forced labor, of tax fraud or tax evasion. I mean, we will concentrate on work sites on a prioritized basis, just like we do at large operations. So let's just go farm with illegal aliens. We'll prioritize those that have a criminal nexus first.
Just one quick follow-up. On Thursday, ICE told agents to hold off on investigations of farms and hotels, absent some other sort of criminality. Is this ICE acting on their own, and what is it?
ICE was not acting. ICE is enforcing laws enacted by Congress. Worksite enforcement operations is an important part of the work we do. Again, where do we find most victims of trafficking? Worksite. Joe Biden stopped worksite. They said they cared about sex trafficking and forced labor trafficking. Then they stopped worksite enforcement. That was a dumb move.
So what was that email from Tatum King?
It's a matter of messaging, proper messaging. The message is clear that we're going to continue doing worksite enforcement operations, even on farms and hotels, but based on a prioritized basis. Criminals come first.
Okay, let's start with the political aspect of this. Trump was really stupid when he reneged and flipped. And he was like, oh, by the way, my partners in big ag and hospitality really don't like the fact how this is hurting their business. And so we're not going to really enforce illegal immigration in the agriculture and hotel business. Excuse me, Mr. Trump. I like talking to an American when I'm booking into a hotel. I actually almost got kicked out of a hotel for calling the person a DEI hire and illegal one time when they couldn't get me a booking, and I don't know why I did that. Was I drunk? Perhaps.
Allegedly.
But were they illegal? Yes, allegedly. My point is that yes, it's about time we clean up the business. You know, if hotels have to cost a little bit more money, things have to, actually cost what they do in order to have a functioning society. Okay, we might have to stay home more. We might not be able to stay out as much. You might have to downgrade the hotels you stay at. It is what it is. However, it seems like Miller, who apparently is one of the good Jews, came in and he said that, we're not doing that. We can't do that. The American people had a huge outcry. He flipped the script, and now Tom Homan and them are saying, we're going back to business. We're doing this. We're doing worksite enforcements, and we're going to go in, and we have to do that. I still don't think this is going to be enough, Jay. I don't think it's going to be enough. I don't think we're going to get what we wanted with these mass deportations. It seems impossible. They can't even decide on who to deport or if we should deport everyone.
Couldn't ICE just go wait outside of Home Depot? And then when all the,
it would make sense.
Well, they're already there.
I know, I'm just going.
They're on the outside, actually.
I think, politics is compromised, unfortunately. So there's probably a lot of pressure on Trump to try to compromise on these points because if they do try to round up masses of people, that will be further feeding into the narrative of tyranny, police state, which is what they tried to get Trump to engage in with the riots in LA and other places. Was it was a bait to try to get him to look like the dictator that they say that he is, which is all kind of ridiculous. But there's no easy answer because it is the Kalergi plan. If you read Kudenov Kalergi himself, which I've read the book, I'm going to lecture through that very soon. That's the Royal Society plan that the elites accepted about 100 years ago, and they decided that would be the best way to reorganize all of Western civilization societies from Europe to the U.S. as well. So it's
for retards. Can you break that down a little bit? Because
it's just weaponized migration. That's it.
Yeah, but explain what that means, because a lot of it seems like we all know that the migrants are coming here because of climate change, right? So the ice caps melted. By the way, I want to remind you, an iceberg took down the Titanic. Early life check, berg. You know what I mean? Destructive forces those bergs can be. Anyway, that my jokes are terrible, but obviously tell us that. But you're saying, and we all know it is intentional. Sydney, London, Paris are now less than 50% white. But what the weaponized why? Like I think that a lot of people never hear why don't they want white people to have a homeland?
Well, there was a banking elite out of the EU. His name was Summers, and he spoke either to the Telegraph or the Guardian maybe 10 years ago about how they would utilize weaponized migration to completely change the demographics of Europe so that it could then be Islamicized. And so that's by design. And in fact, you had the Fabian Society talking about this back in the 1920s in the UK. So people like Bertrand Russell, people like Alice Bailey, people who weren't necessarily Muslims, but they believed that they could utilize Islam as a chess piece, really change the makeup of the society so that it could then be transitioned into the future projections of technocracy and so forth. Same idea with America. It's a little more difficult to completely Islamicize it, but it is easier to utilize the populations that are directly below us through, what was originally NAFTA and free trade was the secret plan for open borders to get people from down there up here. That didn't really work, but now it's just after the Biden administration, it was just full on open borders. Remember Biden saying, come up here. If you're down there, come up here. They even had programs incentivizing people in Latin and South America to come up here. Immediate jobs, EBT, truck driving, all of that.
Phones too. They were given phones.
Exactly.
What's it? HAIS or HIS? What's it called?
HIS is one of the. So that is a strategy. It's not accidental. You also had Catholic Charities heavily involved in that too. So
did you see the administrators of the Catholic organizations? They're a bunch of icebergs. That's true.
Well, and that's why, like, when people who are criticized for being white nationalists, they come after us and say, well, you're calling for genocide then for black and brown people. And it's like, well, no, because the implication here that they're not, that they're missing is that this is an inorganic importation of blacks and browns. So this is not like, we have a few of them coming over and they can coexist with white people, or if they do come here, they have to assimilate. It's like, this is completely inorganic. This should not be happening. It would not have happened if it weren't for these intentional movements to get them here. And, there's a lot of different, theories behind why that is. Of course, the Kalergi plan, and there's other forces at play. I won't say exactly which group of, which ethnic group is behind this, perhaps.
Well, they're Jewish.
Jewish, right? Yeah. No, yeah. But and the reality is, if those things were not in place, America would be a lot more white than it is. And that's what we mean when we say we don't want we want a white country. We don't mean we want to get rid of every single black and brown that is here. Like that wouldn't even be possible. It's just that we want to, maintain the European aspect of this country, the European roots, the European heritage in this country. That's what America is. And so but you get slandered when you say that, of course, because people make it sound like you want everybody else to die, and that's not true. It's fighting the inorganic process that's happening, and unfortunately, people like Trump, obviously the president, he is getting pressure clearly to back down a little bit on that, and that's what we were worried about since day one of the campaign.
Yeah, there's also a sleight of hand here too. We're taught that America is unique because it's quote unquote a melting pot, which another early life check on the one who came up with that term.
We found out he was a theater major.
Okay.
We found out there's a lot of these people because actors change their names.
Sure.
So it turns out there's a lot of theatrical people changing their names. I know, who would have known? Anyway, that's a small fact.
But there's a sleight of hand with this because I talk to friends who are Brits, and what's interesting is like they're told the exact same thing as we're told as Americans. And it's like, okay, Brits unquestionably have a cultural heritage, right? But they're being told the same things that we're being told about how America is this unique, it's ontologically unique in the sense that it's a melting pot. Well, then why are the Brits being told that? Because England certainly isn't that. So it's just a sleight of hand that you start to see with the narratives.
Yeah, well, let me play this video. What's kind of crazy with the immigration side, and one of the reasons why I want to play this is because it's wild that they're using our money to fund this. Now, I was in Los Angeles. I was back there. Everyone knows I'm from LA. If you can't tell by my voice, I am. one of the crazy things is that, I brought Michael Hennessy, our producer here, to downtown first, right? Down there, like Figueroa, 2nd, 7th, showed him around. Typical, you had homeless encampments that had the F ICE signs on them. It's very LA, right? Politically active leftists in homeless encampments shooting up fent. You know what I mean? They call it fent action. But you look at the dystopian nature, and then I took him over to where I hang out when I was there, which is West LA, right? So you got West Hollywood, you got Bel Air, you have Santa Monica, you have Beverly Hills, you just have West LA in general, right? So you go over there, and it's like you cross a signal, and then you go into this area, and it's actually, you're like, oh, no wonder why the state has such a high GDP and money. Like, these people aren't, like, as they say on TikTok, they're rich. These people are actually insanely wealthy. These are 30, 60, $120 million homes. And the disparity between the wealthy and the poor is what's happening across our nation, where the rich are getting richer, and this is where I start selling communist, and the poor are getting poorer. But I care about this because this is catastrophic. A lot of people are getting richer without trying. They just earn a home that was worth $300,000 a year ago, 4 years ago, and that's worth $1.2 million. You have wealthy people whose companies, which are about to get, hopefully you're invested in Raytheon, guys, have gone up, right? NVIDIA is a good example. The last 15 years, people have increased their wealth, and the poor. I think I was reading that like 83% of people under 20 have no desire to own a home ever. It's like 4 out of 5 now. They don't even think they can. And I was dumbfounded because listen to this. The rich, when you take the rich's money and you spend on taxes, if you're so rich, you don't notice it. But as the poor, which I would consider myself part of the poor class, these people spend the rich's money in our country. This is why they don't care if they get richer. As long as the money keeps pumping and it's coming from somewhere, they're never going to use that money to help you. Right? This is why socialism is never going to work in this country. They will never use the money to help you in America. They will use the money to push this Kalergi plan, this international plan of whatever. They will use your money to resettle migrants and give them your homes. That's what you see in Northern Ireland with the riots. That's what you see in London. That's what you see even in Australia, New Zealand. They're using your money to get other people into your country and help them while literally kicking you out. Listen to this. This is crazy. In order to fix the anger in New York, Kathy Hochul has a plan to fix the illegal problem in the country. You'll never believe what her solution is. And yes, it's giving more money.
That are walking out of this courthouse, taken away from their families. They don't have the attention. They don't have the lawyers. And that's why the state of New York is providing $50 million to cover legal services for people who are finding themselves in this situation.
I don't know if anyone wants to start that. I was just laughing. It was like, we're having a problem in our country right now. So taxpayers are going to spend $50 million to pay for illegals to help them right now. Additionally, like, okay, I have to be so careful here, but like, okay, they'll just read my mind. What would happen to a person like that in a just country? Like, imagine someone that's like they stole $50 million from the taxpayers to give to non-citizens in your country while people are hurting, can't pay for groceries. Bad things from the state, by the way, but from the law should happen to that person, in my opinion. It's maddening.
Well, you don't have any illegals listening to your show, I don't think. So, like, if they were smart, they would go buy Bitcoin. So,
that's actually true, right? No, but $50 million. Like, I'm trying to understand. Is it apathy that people are not up in arms? Like, do we just not believe we can do anything? Is it a spiritual darkness? Like, I see this and I get pissed.
It's white guilt. People are like ashamed of being white, and they're told that it's wrong almost to be white. And so therefore they owe everybody else all this help because white people are just these awful people who destroyed the world.
Colonizer.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about how it's interesting how the dissident left and the dissident right are on the same side when it comes to the Iran war. Well, yes, we are, but for different reasons, because the left calls, Israel colonizers or, the West colonizers. So we don't want the war, but for very different reasons. Because that is the root of the left's whole argument. Is that with everything? Is that white people are bad? White people don't deserve a homeland. White people don't deserve to fight for anything. There's nothing to fight for. We don't have culture. I would very much disagree with that. If you look at the Renaissance time period, for example, you can look at all of the culture that we still have as a result of that. But that's where it all stems from. It's just hatred of the white race, and people buy into it. White people buy into it. It's really sad. And it's frustrating for those of us who can recognize it and we know what's happening. And it's like they won't
yourself white, because there's an argument in the chat right now of they don't know what your ethnicity is.
So people. So I am Spanish. I'm Spanish, Portuguese, and French. So I don't know why. Like I definitely would not consider myself brown. I mean, look at my skin. But
I don't think you're brown. Everyone's just like, what is she? What's going on here?
No, a lot of people do say that because they say if you're like Hispanic or you have a Hispanic last name, which is like really annoying because it's just like, what am I then if I'm not white? But no, unless there are some people who consider Southern Europeans non-white or swarthy whites, which okay, fine. In that case, maybe I am that. But
you want to weigh in, Mendoza? Are you there? Are you able to come on?
Well, he's Mexican. I'm not.
Yeah. What would you give her? Would you give her the pass? Are we gonna do the brown paper bag test they did in like the 70s? What is
what
white?
Even is that?
What even is white?
I say all Europeans are white. Like if you're ethnically European, you're white in my opinion.
You agree with that? What do you think? You can disagree with her. It's a show.
Fine.
You don't have to agree with the woman on the show.
No, I think people say the same thing about Eastern Europeans. They say they're not actually white. Which
that one's stupid. Though.
That's
they're
ridiculous.
Like maybe Albanians are getting close to that, but like people from Czechoslovakia that doesn't exist. Like
Polacks are questionable. Just kidding.
But no, Polish people are like it's like come on, Polish people are not white. They have a different culture.
Just
right?
see how they dance. You can test people by how they dance, because if a white guy dances like a dad,
So if you can dance, you're
aren't
not white. Okay,
Correct,
got it.
right.
Got it.
You're part black.
If you dance like Elaine from Seinfeld, then you're white.
But she's Jewish,
all right. Well,
so that
to be
doesn't
fair,
work.
I was I'm actually a good dancer.
I've seen Obama
I
dance. He dances like a white guy.
That's true.
He's half white.
He's half white.
So he's got the skin, but the dance moves of a white dad. But I don't. What would this is actually a good question?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make you mad because I have my own opinion. But Mike, because
I know your opinion. You
listen,
told me,
no, but because Mike over here, go to Mike Ross. So people don't realize Mike's actually super tall. Okay, he's like what?
I'm
6 foot 7,
7'3".
7'3".
I'm like 6'2".
Yeah, like 6'2". So for a Hispanic guy, that's pretty tall, I think. Particularly for someone who's not like blonde. Like everyone's was like, I met a guy who was blonde haired and green eyed in Argentina, and he was 6'7". Okay, well that's just a European living there. You don't know history. No, for a Hispanic, he's a Chad. This guy's a Chad. Yeah, right. He's tall.
He's tall. Yeah.
He got a hot wife. I mean that respectfully, but he landed a bomb girl. He's got a cute kid. Like he made it, right? And he's not balding like white people, like me or something. So it's like he's got his hair. It sucks as you get older when you're white. You get hair on your back and in your ears, but it leaves your head. But anyway, would you consider her white or no?
See, the problem is that your last name is Perez. Well, so like, I guess for me it's different too, because I mean, like, my last name is Mendoza. I mean, same with like Nick, for example. I mean, his last name is Fuentes, and then just because he's a quarter Mexican, everyone considers him brown. But I mean, I guess just by first glance, I would consider her brown, I guess. But like because I would think she's Hispanic, but the Spanish is European technically, or not even technically, just actually it is. So,
well, that's the thing. Like you can. The thing about Hispanics is Hispanic doesn't really mean anything. It just means like you're from a Spanish-speaking country, and that could include Spain, but Spain is in Europe.
Could be American.
Exactly. Well, like
from LA.
But like Nick's a good example. He has a Hispanic last name. I have a Hispanic last name, but I don't think like anybody would consider this skin tone brown. So like I don't know. I mean, I just don't. I've never. They're
in love with you though. By the way, you don't take this personally. You have Sims.
Well,
thanks. So it's like they're not like
guys.
No one's picking you apart. They're just trying to figure out what their children are going to look like.
I don't. Oh, okay. Well, in that case, maybe chill a little bit. But
that's what they're saying. I'm
not saying you. I was saying them.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I love Love the audience, but no, I'm not Mexican. Because that one I get a lot. I mean, they say that about all Hispanics, but
ooh, that's like a dig in the back.
you
It's like
can
saying,
no.
I'm not Mexican.
Mexicans are cool as long as they're not raping and murdering. They're cool. All right, I have no problem with them, but
Mike,
I'm definitely
are you taking
not one of them. It's just genetically true. I'm not. I don't have any Mexican DNA.
I'll see myself out then. Never know.
All right, bye.
Because when Joey's in the room, I don't. What do you think makes white people white? Like, what? That's a very interesting, like, non-controversial question. Because like you, I would say you would be like you'd look like an Aryan. You know what I mean? Like, well, you look Aryan.
I'm Scandinavian, French,
Scandinavian, yeah.
and German. Well, I mean, like it is an interesting
Scandinavian.
conversation though, because like each European country is going to have their own like cultural heritage, right? So it is an interesting conversation. I mean, personally, I think one of the as far as like this whole topic, like I just want to know why it's like controversial to even talk about when if you bring up like Japan, right? Like Japan wanting to be like Japanese, like it's like not an issue, right? But like as soon as we have like this conversation right here is going to be like painted as a bunch of like, white nationalists or something talking.
But we literally have a multi-ethnic group discussing this, trying to find out what that means, which you have to do on the internet these days. It's really gay, but it's true. It's like you have to like be like, we need a black guy here apparently. But I did want to know that because
that's me.
Yeah. Jay Dyer, ladies and gentlemen.
Y'all ain't know I was a black dude.
Riga.
Y'all thought I was a white dude this whole time. But hey, the Hodge twins, they proved that you can be black and have blue eyes.
Man, this nigga Jay Dyer, he black.
Who that is?
He black.
Who that is?
That's Hennessy in his cup right there, actually. No, okay, well, I think, we're not going to say this for too long, but I did say, it's hard for me because my worldview is that I actually agree with leftists that white is two things. White is both a actual like ethnicity, but we also there's this thing as white culture as well. So like there are white people who are white skinned and do not act white, like the Wiggers, right? It's like they're like, yo, fool, what up? And you're like, okay, you are white by definition, but you've also like rejected what that also means in displaying who you are, right?
You talk about the white Muslims, all the white Muslims.
Correct. Well, yeah, that's also an example too. We're talking about like Azerbaijan type of thing. But then on the other hand, it's like there are people who are not white skinned who have completely adopted white European culture. I'm not saying they live in Europe. I mean, like they're like very docile, very normal, very passive, very integrative. They know how to queue in a line, right? That's a very big thing. If you're non-white, you know how to stand in a line and be quiet. That's a big one. You don't play Bluetooth speakers. No, what I say, there's some people who are like very much, they've really integrated. And I respect the hell out of that. Like if you didn't want to live near your people because you didn't like them, I don't assume it's because you thought they were all ugly. I assume it's because you didn't like the way they behaved. And so you behave like this group and that's what you care about. So on one hand, I think that whiteness, the left always says whiteness is like, it's a way of life. It's being quiet in the workplace. It's this, they always say that, deconstructing whiteness. So I do think that there are people who could be like European and Southern European who, depending on the way they display themselves or express themselves, could be considered more white, even if their skin color is in itself not very light shade, in the same way that I think there are some Southern Europeans that I wouldn't consider white. Like Sicilians, I don't think are white.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't act like us. They don't look like us. But it's like, again, when you're the white Muslims in Azerbaijan, or like the Afghanis, they're white, but I don't consider them white despite having the skin color and green eyes. That's a true statement.
I don't want to like harp on this, but like one thing I will say too, the reason the argument matters is for a few things. So, it's important to have your identity in check there, but also because I personally just don't believe in race mixing, and that's not a racist thing. I don't hate people who don't believe in that, but I just personally would not do it. And that matters obviously then how I define myself. And, I'm not going to go ahead. I don't have anything culturally in common or even racially in common with like, if you were to say I'm brown, why would that means I would have to then be with a brown person, but I don't I'm not anything like that. You know what I mean? So then I would.
Well, you consider yourself white Hispanic?
Yeah, I call myself, I'm okay with that term, but I really just say Southern European. So.
What about you? Are you white Hispanic? What do you even, we can move on to the subject. I just want to know this.
I told you I'm black. I don't know what you got a problem with that.
Man.
Well, okay, you can be honest. I just think that a lot of people are not white that say they're white, but also I'm also a little bit different than like people who are a little more extreme white identitarian people who, meaning I do think that, I've met plenty of people I can live around who are not white that I think are make great neighbors and they're incredible people. Doesn't mean I want mass immigration from their countries or a ton of them living around me, because there's too many of them and they don't adopt your culture. But again, I've always said, if you're like a Vietnamese person, you helped us in a war, you were a translator and you needed asylum and we gave it to you for like real asylum because you actually like helped us for 5 years. I don't mind you coming to my country and being here.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I want to open up Vietnam to just anyone applying to come into my country. Like that's kind of where I stand.
I think there's several different things. Like you can class civilizations, and civilizations always at the edges have kind of gray areas and fuzzy areas where like the language and the culture reaches another tribe or people group that may have some genetic similarities. You know, if the Greeks, export, if the papacy and the Greeks export a language and a religion to Russia, Russia converts and becomes somewhat of a civilization beyond being, say, Vikings or whatever, then they build a civilization. There's going to be a kind of a native ethnic component that makes up the civilization, but you can also have outward influences on the edges of the civilization or the empire that also are touched by that, which I think covers what you're talking about like different groups, like is a Sicilian part of, the white heritage. So I think that Caucasoid peoples and that haplogroup and the genetics is one thing. Then you have the layer of civilization on top of that, which can be kind of blurry around the edges in terms of where they expand their imperial, ethos to. And so all of that's going on at the same time. So there's a biological component, which is, specific genetic. There's civilizations, and then there's the edges of civilization, which allows for some flexibility. But usually when people have this discussion, this debate, they look at the blurry areas and they try to say, see, there's nothing because there's blurry areas here about what exactly, but that doesn't mean that because it's like there's shades of red, but just because there's shades of red, it doesn't mean that there's not red.
Exactly.
Right?
I actually agree with that. Like kind of like I do agree that whiteness is like a spectrum. So like you might be more white than me, Elijah, because you're Northern European. I assume so, at least.
Yeah.
And like I would accept. Okay, maybe I'm like slightly like lesser on the less white side of that scale, but I'm still white. I'm just like less, or I guess as Ben Franklin would say, a swarthy white.
So you're saying, hold on. Let's say I was single. I'm married, but let's say I was single. You're saying that as a Latina, you would not go with a black man like me.
Yes, exactly. Yes, black.
Whoa. Racism.
Yeah, well, okay. I'll
I'm
go to a real topic, but
I'm not. Well, I know it's a joke, but
I'm
not
not
Latina.
flirting with you. I love my wife. I'm not flirting.
Somebody said that you
silly.
would be white in Mexico. So
Well, I'm not even Latina. Like that's the thing. Like I don't. You can't even.
I think Drew Hernandez identifies as Latino. This is like a pointless
Well,
combo,
he
but
actually is.
But she's been on all week, and they've been asking in
Yeah.
the chat every day. So it's like, who
All
are
I'm
you?
saying is like ethnic, like whatever you think I look like, regardless of what you think I look like, ethnically speaking, like there is, and I've done my 23 or not 23andMe, what's called Ancestry.com. I'm Southern European, and there's really just no denying that. Like, numbers don't lie.
Well, I'll say this too, by the way. I just want to point out, if you wanted to hear more from these guys tonight, they're going to be on tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern and also at 7 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. So they're actually going to be on, it'll be pre-recorded, but they will be on 2 shows, just so you know.
Okay, so wait a minute. So Sammy the Bull Gravano, I've done his podcast. We've done a lot of interviews. Really funny guy. I like him. I think he's got green eyes, totally white skin, full-blood Sicilian, because he was number 2 in the mafia under Gotti. You think that's not white?
No, I would say that's half white then, because there's 2 aspects where it's like, now he looks white, but because culturally I feel like Sicilians are separated. They've got much more close to like a Spanish sort of familia, like Latin culture than they really have. Like Northern Italians I consider to be fully white, and I consider Middle and Southern Italians to be half white. Like you're like half caste.
That's
so
interesting, actually.
It's like, because it's culture and skin color. Like I said, like technically Afghans, there are white Afghans, there are white Hispanics, but that's not a white person. That's still an Afghani who's white, like light skinned, right? Which is what we call light skin. There are black people who are albino and technically their skin's white.
Well,
but
yeah,
you are
that's-
white. Yeah, you're whiter than I am, but you're still not a white person. You're not white means to me is like European heritage, particularly the values and temperament of a European, and I believe it's genetic. So so when I say when I say that white people deserve a homeland, I am not talking about bringing in a bunch of Argentinians and South Mexicans. I'm talking about people from Europe.
Right.
Like
So
that's,
you're saying you wouldn't want John Gotti running your ethno-state?
I am saying that I hope that when my ethno-state gets attacked by Iran, that the whole world supports me as much as they support Israel, which is apparently not, not that much.
I just want to say this is who I want running my ethno state. This is pure Aryan, cut from the cloth, blonde hair, blue eyed, European right here. This is who I want running my.
Okay, is he white?
State.
Okay, this is so
Sorry, I
confusing.
don't know why we're still on the subject. This is retarded.
This is actually kind of a good topic, though.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting because I get into these debates all the time. Is he black? I think he's half black, right?
He's never actually. So yeah, we've looked this up. He's never ever said that he's half black. He says that he's just Italian.
Wait, by the way, could you pass for Arab? Like at certain angles, you kind of look like an Arab dude.
100%.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I've got everything from I've got Greek. I've got everything.
Yeah.
I've actually got Greek a lot in my life, but
You
half
seem
Mexican, half
scared
white.
to talk about this. Is there a reason? Is it your Christian faith, or you just don't want to be on a show talking about white identity politics?
Look, yeah, I mean, when I get
why.
a show,
Give
I
a Trump
represent.
answer. Give a Trump answer.
Frankly,
The answer is yes
but
and no.
as
Yes,
an Orthodox
maybe
Christian,
maybe
I just feel like I'm representing the Orthodox faith, so I want to be careful. I want to be careful what I say. So, plus Jay,
And as
Jay
a black
can-
man,
Jay
I'm
can
representing
carry
the
it.
black
Yeah.
population. I do have a free
This
pass.
is black
the
excellence
Hodge,
right here.
the Hodge twins have given me a free pass. Everything's cool. Don't worry.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say so, but like even myself, like I'm not like I don't find a lot of identity. Like I actually my criticisms a lot of like the Wignat movement and a lot of the like white nationalist movement is that there's a lot of people who claim that like we're supreme and that we are the best. And as somebody who is of that heritage and I come from that background, of course I think we're the best. I totally agree with that background. But I think just like, assuming we're the best and not, we're collapsing now. Our society's collapsing. So I mean, we're not becoming less white skin color. Technically, we are with intermixing, but we're not becoming like, I'm not less white the less our culture reflects European values. I'm still, my skin color is staying the same right now, but we're losing what it is that defines us. We're kind of like losing that as we become multicultural. What I'm trying to say is these people oftentimes see the same issues I see. They're very angry, but they have a self-inflated sense of ego and pride to where they then think that they're better than everyone when they're not the best versions of themselves. And it actually ends up impeding them because they assume, because I look this way, I have more value, I'm better. And then they're like, incels, they're not getting married. And one of my main issues with a lot of these movements, which I think are inherently have a good momentum. I think they're helping young men find identity and value in their heritage, and I totally support them. But any movement that's not supporting procreation is not a real white supremacist movement or white identitarian or white nationalist movement, because if you're trying to build a white nation, if you think you're better, then you want to procreate and make more of you. And if the goal is not procreation, it's like, well, we shouldn't procreate. There's all these excuses. I've heard it all from everyone. Then what it is then what you're doing is you make the movement a cosplay. So then a bunch of young guys who are like, you end up having a brown white supremacist movement, which is what a lot of these movements become. And every time I meet these guys at like conferences that are these accounts that I follow that are like pro-America, pro-white, or like Hispanics, and they're like black guys, and they're like not, it's always shocking to me. I'm always very confused because it becomes a costume. It's like being white and loving your country is now like having a swastika and making based edits. And it's like this, it's almost like how the woke, to be a good person, it's like, you put on your trans flag and you put on your
Cultural
BLM.
appropriation.
Well, it's like, but you have these little like trinkets and pins, and now you're woke, but yet you do nothing. You don't help anybody. You don't give your money to anyone. Like you're not actually doing anything. You're just playing the part. And so a lot of people, I think, are playing the part. These Wignats and people are like, it's like, dude, going on a bridge and yelling at a mixed race child and calling them an N-word. I've seen that video. Who was like, yeah, that's crazy.
We just had a guy who was into a lot of that stuff convert and become Orthodox, and he was involved with like the neo-pagan Wotan type Odin movement stuff. A lot of times biological determinism, which is what those views fall into, I think ends up in another kind of idolatry. So whereas the evangelical boomer or the Israeli worships his own nation, his own race, you can have a reverse version of that where white identity and the idea of worshiping your blood becomes a new idol. And we would say that's also demonic, because there's a difference between worshiping and serving that and trying to craft a deity which allows you to worship your own bloodline or something. That's it's like the reverse of the Zionist type position, right? So I think they're both wrong, but that doesn't mean that everything about your heritage, your identity is wrong or should be degraded. Rather, there's a balance that should occur, and the only way to have that balance is to have, right, Christianity as God is first, and then these are other goods. They're not the ultimate good, but they're subsidiary goods.
Yeah, I don't know if you agree with me on that, but I feel like I look at my sons in the eyes, and they're blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boys. I don't even say their names on my shows. I want to protect them. You know, I don't want to put that out there. And I know what the world is. It's against them, and whether or not they become make Rhodesia, TikToks, or they join a group that helps other white men survive, they are going to be facing a certain amount of challenges in their life, and I think they're gonna understand those challenges and realize what's going on. And I want them to not make it like a clique or a game where what happens is people get in these groups and then it becomes about being accepted by the group and kind of conforming to the group and what they want, but it's not actually about becoming the best version of yourself and about actually helping your people. Because if you're helping your people right now in this era, you wouldn't be posting swastikas everywhere, because it's like, oh, so what, you're not based? It's like, no, because I'm smart. And I've always told people, it's like that's not a smart thing to do. Well, you know what I'm saying? That's not the best way to gain intelligence and power. Go infiltrate, go get in, go work on yourself, go try to get influence and be a moral person and try to build character, go have children. And it's like, if your goal isn't to be a moral person, honor God, start a family, gain influence, gain wealth, and not become corrupt in order to have and exert power over your immediate sphere and your greater sphere, then you're not a serious movement of people, and you're a club. It's like a social club, not really a movement of reality. That's what I think.
That's why true white excellence is just being not settling for mediocrity. It's not about calling people names or just saying things, inflammatory things for the sake of saying inflammatory things. I mean, sure, we can joke around here and there and say those things, but I think really what it means is to, basically, succeed at everything you can and be knowledgeable about culture, about art, about, the world, and be educated and regain power for the right reasons. And so it's not about this is, NNWP, if you know what that, I don't know if I can say that. But
I mean, you can say whatever you want. I mean, I'm just it's just a discussion. We're not pushing any ideology right now. We're just talking about what people think.
But I was just saying that, but no, I think and in short, I agree with you. I think that true white excellence is not something that needs to be shouted from the rooftops, but rather just, exemplified. You behave a certain way, you achieve a certain status. That's what it is.
But I also think this is a true statement. I think there's a lot of people, I don't have the physiognomy to where I think people look at me and they seethe, because I don't think I have a phenotype that people really want, right? It's actually so sad that when I meet people in person, the first thing they always say, which they say to you too, Mike, in the back, they always say, I didn't realize you were so tall. And because obviously there are traits about being a man, just like you could be short, if people find out you're rich, right? Why do wealthy people try to hide their money often? Because they know that, once people find out they have a lot of money, they will like them more because of the money, and they don't want to be valued for that. So sometimes it's funny because I call myself a dating app failure. If you didn't see my bank account and you didn't meet me in person and get my personality and you didn't see my height, I'm an ugly ass motherfucker. However, girls do value multiple things. So I never had a problem dating in person, right? Or meeting a girl and attracting them or whatever. And my wife loves me, but I'm going to get swiped away, and that's okay. What I think though, genuinely speaking, is that people this is, what are we saying? What is it? No homo or pause? What is it?
Both.
Okay.
Pause is a new one.
Oh yeah. The one is pause. But I think people see Ben and his physiognomy and this sort of white Scandinavian, Giga Chad thing. And I think that it actually makes them see that a lot of people have this inferiority complex, as they would call it. It's not because of European beauty standards, but I think that even a lot of white people that are not born with that Scandinavian, tan skin and that sort of Chad, what you think Superman, sort of Henry Cavill type of look, I think a lot of the other races also feel inferior. Have you ever seen an average British person? They're not that good looking.
Yeah,
an average Scandinavian is. Comparatively. So I do think there's an actual hatred of beauty, though, pause. I'm talking about a man now, so this is a bit gay, but it's like, but I mean this. I mean, I'm talking about Scandinavian women particularly. I mean, they're known as being the most beautiful in the world. Besides, of course, the women in this office right here, the wives and everyone. You guys are all. Can we get a round of applause for all the women? My wife, you're all the most beautiful. But they're known for that. I do think that there is a hatred from people because they are not as good looking. I was in El Salvador working, and I'm telling you, I saw 3 attractive women in the capital the entire time I was there. That's crazy. Anyway, I saw a video clip of Russian streets. I'm married, so I'll be careful, but conventionally attractive, meaning I saw a video just walking through the streets, and there was like probably 100 in like a 2-minute
Eastern
video.
European women are beautiful. I think they're like the most beautiful.
But don't you think a hatred of white people also is of like proportions and beauty? And,
100%.
Height, and like they hate it.
That's the thing. Like, the fact that we need to be told that black features are beautiful. Like, what does that tell you if you need to be told something? If you're not naturally gravitating towards something. And that's not to say that I think like, you're automatically ugly if you're not white. I'm just saying that there's something to be said for the fact that people do tend to agree upon the fact that European features are the most beautiful, the most proportionate.
That's really what it is. So I would lose aura points. I just let my physiognomy speak for itself. So if I talk about this too much, I'll lose aura.
No, but nobody's talking about this aspect of the hatred towards white
It's
culture.
jealousy.
I think there's a lot of jealousy of
I
the
agree.
accomplishments of the look, and that's kind of like they put such weird looking people on advertisements now and on the internet, and I feel like there's a war against God and against beauty. What is that called again? The do you remember that like proportion thing that's like in everything? What is it called?
The Fibonacci sequence.
Fibonacci sequence, right? God has designed in our society a order in the chaos, right? He designed a standard. And I think what a lot of the problems is in our society, I'm going to kind of confess here. I'm not going to be like, sometimes I used to tell too much about my private life. My wife was like, stop, you're giving your enemies ammo. But I'm
the
Nia.
same problem.
No, but I like to be raw and real on the show. We like it raw here. But I do believe there are standards. And the main problem in our society that I think is that people don't want to accept the standards and the boundaries that God has given us. Which is like, for instance, why do we have the Me Too movement? Well, because we have to really focus on consent, because we've thrown out the standards of any sexual boundaries. You can do whatever you want, you know what I mean? Except as long as they say yes. And so now we know there has to be a standard in sexuality, but there has to be boundaries. It feels uncomfortable to have just a society of rape where you could just go around like in Sodom and Gomorrah and just grab the visitor and mass rape them in an orgy. Like that sounds wrong to us to this day. It's like you've got to consent. But we've thrown out with same-sex relationships. We've thrown out with promiscuity. We've thrown out with infidelity. We've thrown all these things out. And I think that like one of the hard parts is now as a person is I've noticed in the entire conservative movement, everyone's got a lot of ideas for how to fix the country, includes the left too, and they don't know how to fix their own lives. Everyone's kind of messed up, and at least some admit it, and they're working on it with God. But it's like, you see our politicians, they have the most screwed up life. Even Trump's been divorced, like 3 times, something like that. All I'm saying is I feel like the standards that we're not willing to accept are what are destroying us. And the more that we're not allowed to talk about these standards, that white people are afraid to admit that they're better looking or that their culture's better or their country and their way of life is superior is a huge limitation that is what holds us back. I don't know if that conflicts with Christianity, but I do think that we need to be more open about the greatness of who we are and what we've done and our standards. And I don't know why it would be weird to believe that objectively white people are better looking. That's just my opinion, but maybe that's not true. Who knows? Everyone's looking at me like I'm saying something terrible. So I'm waiting to be accepted by the crowd.
No, I agree. I'm
waiting to be accepted. I'm a woman. Accept me. No, but is that a wrong? Is that theologically a wrong thing to like to have us? Like, is that racist? Is that like evil? Or is that like if I'm like, hey, which by the way, again, yes, there are
racism is not inherently
well, so here's the
though.
deal, right? So we need to talk about there's an ontological equality of humanity as being created in the image of God. That's the Christian view. However, what the leftists have done is they've taken that and then they've extended it to meaning that there's no differences, right, in us as people, right? God created us with our differences. And so, yes, to own those differences that's not an issue. The issue is when you start to reduce somebody to being non-human or being ontologically not equal just because, they're not like you, for example. That would be where you're theologically wrong.
Okay, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, don't you think, this is even uncomfortable in this own studio, but don't you think that there's, like, a standard in terms of, like this is, so, I'll keep this completely appropriate with you here, but it's like, okay, so conventionally, the chat is attracted to you. And it's because there's what's called conventional beauty, right? Like, for instance, Jay's intimidating to all of us. If you look like that, it's absolutely...
I'm a diva, straight diva, so...
He's black excellence.
It's black excellence. No, but there's conventional attraction. So a bunch of guys come in here, and if we have a guest who's conventionally unattractive, they're freaking brutal, right? We just saw that recently. They're like, yeah, we're not going to name anyone's name, but they're very, very upset. That convention of what beauty is like, okay... I'm not saying that just white people are beautiful, but then my opinion is that girls that are beautiful have conventionally white features. Like,
yes,
that's what
100%.
So that's why, like, girls that are black, for instance, like, sometimes I'll joke, my friend will be like, oh, I'm not attracted to a black woman. And then this girl will walk by and she essentially looks like a white girl with like frizzy
what
hair.
What makes her beautiful? It's her proportions. It's the fact that she has a European nose, a European facial structure.
But I still don't like her little bush hair.
I know what you mean. Yeah, that's.
Like, I don't like that feature. In the same way, I'm not attracted to a totally white woman with a bush hair.
No,
like,
but the more European you look, like that tends to be what makes you attractive, and that's why, like, I know I agree. That's why some this is true for, like, especially Latin America, because there's a lot of, Latin America is kind of a confusing place because there's a lot of whites there too. So, like, what makes them attractive is how much European they have. Because remember, it's like a mixed part of the world because you had the European influence when they came over. Like somebody like Sofia Vergara, why is she considered beautiful? Well, because she's probably, I would wager, like at least 70% European.
Are you guys? I'm going to switch the topic. I know you guys don't want to talk about this.
Well, look,
sorry,
I'll make one more point.
She's interested in this.
Went off on a tangent.
Can I make one more point from the theological standpoint? So another important distinction is the general versus individual distinction. So, for example, when St. Paul writes his letter to Titus, he specifically talks about the Cretans, and he says all Cretans are deceivers and liars, and he says all these nasty things about Cretans, right? But what's interesting is he's writing to St. Titus, who is a Cretan, and he's writing to the faithful that are in Crete, right? And so what St. Paul does there is like that kind of shows this general versus individual distinction that's really important in these conversations. Is like, okay, like when we're making generalities, which aren't necessarily inherently wrong, but you have to understand there's also individual exceptions. And that's basically like what's embodied there.
So has Playboy magazine ever done Aborigine edition?
No.
That's true. It's true.
Have you ever seen? I won't even comment, but they're very interesting. I'll be back in Australia, by the way. I'm doing an event. I'll let you guys know if you want to meet up there. So to my Aussies, well, I'll be there. All right. Switching the subject, I want to read a few super chats, and I want to talk about another couple stories. Typically, we go for like another half hour. You guys good with that? Yeah, just to get through the topics here. That's only about another 20 minutes or 15, 20 minutes. But these guys drove far. I want to read a couple super chats because you guys have been sending them in. I appreciate it. Tattle Berlin gave $10, which I think that gets an applause. $5 is the air horn. Let's go. Tatter Berlin said, "Give me that Kindle. I didn't get 40 acres and a donkey." Isn't that what they said they give slaves when they, or was that soldiers when they came back?
Yeah, 40 acres and a mule.
All right. That being said, also on top of this, we have a few more chats here. Okay. You got a Zesty AIDS said, "Based Anna indeed. Grower gang declares you white. NHH."
See, yeah. NHH.
All right, we got some confetti. That was $20. Let's go. We also have Mavdick 1996. Thank you guys for your creative names. Do you ever have this with super chats where like it'll be like Mavdick 1996 says Hitler was correct, and you're like, okay, well, dude, can you go be creative? You know what I mean? Like, thank you for your $15, but like, do you ever have that?
I do.
Yeah, we're just like, how does this add to the conversation?
We have all kinds of my super chats are all inside jokes. It's like people talking about nubs, people talking about stuff that I can't mention. So
I like it. I like the inappropriate.
Jay's got like
nature.
the most esoteric
It's
YouTube
all
channel
inside jokes.
imaginable.
Yeah, nobody
I'm
knows.
starting to get my YouTube rolling. I'm mostly on X and Instagram.
Well, if you're on YouTube, you should come around more. You should come on the show. Like, you should come around here sometimes because
Bet.
you
We'll
ever
talk.
want to come for like another like few days, like what she did, and just like post up with the wife. You have kids?
No, not yet.
Okay, there you go. Then that solves a lot of the issues. Maverick 1996 though gave a good one. Said it's nice to know Anna isn't a Latinx. As a 100% Aryan, I dub Anna an honorary Aryan. Let's go, ladies and gentlemen.
Clapping for myself.
Where does AOC rank? Is she white or
Well,
not?
she's clearly brown. I mean, she's probably mixed, like half.
Not in
native,
my
half-
mind.
Oh, well, there you have it.
I'm just kidding. You know what? The problem with AOC is that I think of her as way hotter than she is, only because all the pictures I see of AOC are like AI pictures that people make to make her hotter than she is. Like recently, I was thinking, I was like, oh yeah, AOC, she's got like green eyes and like light pale skin. And I was like,
Does AOC have green, wait, she has green eyes?
Can you find the white AOC?
Pretty sure
No, it's like I just like don't really follow AOC, and then I always the people I follow always post her in these like beautiful like outfits, and it's all fake, you know. And you're like, wow, that girl's hot. And you're like, oh, that's AOC, and then it's just like ingrained.
That's AIC.
That's actually good. AIC. Ian Whiskey Tango Fox at $10. Let's go. Remember, you gotta send $20 to get the confetti of color, which is COC. You can get it all over Jay and Ben's face. Talmud Tractate Yoma 39b admits the Second Temple miracle stopped working 40 years before its destruction. What happened 40 years before? They crucified Christ. The Holy Spirit vacated Christ as the King. Is that true? Like, sorry, it says admit the miracles. Was there miracles happening in the temple before Jesus? Like, what miracles were happening? I mean, I know it's probably in Leviticus and stuff, but like, was there something that happened when like the high priest went in? Did something like enter the temple and like flames went out or something? Like, what?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of records of miraculous events in like the Maccabees in the temple, and you know the theophanies in the temple in the Old Testament. So there are mentions of miracles, but I'm not familiar with that Talmudic statement.
Ian, if you just want to send in another $500, $100, you saw that Ezra Levant is like trying to get you to send money to Rebel so he can lose weight. And he says his only motivation is if you give the company money. So you got to give him money or he won't lose weight. And guess what happens if you give money? Guess what you get? He loses weight. So the win for you giving money
is you get to see him get skinnier.
Is that he gets to get healthy and gets to keep your money. Isn't that a cool combo? These Levants, man, they're crazy. Him and Yemeni, these Westerners. I want to remind you, I'm so pissed. Avi Yemeni, I tried to team up with him in Australia to actually help the government from Rebel News, their biggest guy. He wouldn't shake my hand because I didn't support the war in Gaza. So Australia first. All right, Ian Whiskey Tango Fox's Talmud Tractate. Okay, anyway, he also said, I'm considering becoming an Orthodox catechumen. Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What is that?
Catechumen is basically it's the process to becoming Orthodox. So usually it's about 6 months to a year, and it's where you go through catechesis, where you learn classes about the Orthodox faith before you get baptized and chrismated.
Okay, I'm considering becoming an Orthodox catechumen. I come from an evangelical background, but Orthodoxy stands up against time and argument. Also, does Jay know about Yoma 39b? Oh, yeah, well, that clearly he does, since you sent that. Zesty AIDS said, let's get a round of applause and some confetti here. Said, spot on, gang. Worship of self, money, idols, and own truths and gods. That's what the world we're living in, sadly. Christ is king. God gave us the spirit to be joyful and courageous, not fearful and scared. Let's go. We also have Mavdick, 1996, $5. Get a little air horn. I know it's relentless, but it's part of you paying for the sounds. Nice to see Anna again. How many shows is she doing this week? Also, Jay, thank you, brother. You're one of the people who convinced me Orthodoxy is the true church of Jesus Christ. Hail Christ.
Many years.
Do you have a lot of people who have credit you with pointing them towards God? I like that. That's a meaningful thing. You too? You have that?
I get usually a couple DMs per week. People that are inquiring, people that say that me and Jay contributed to them becoming Orthodox. So yeah, it's a blessing. Those are my favorite DMs to get because I get a lot of hate DMs too. So
how old are you?
I'm 28.
28. You look younger than that, right?
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
23. He looks like Braden's age.
Yeah, I see that.
Braden's 23.
Definitely.
Interesting. And you're what?
16?
29?
Sweet 16?
2016.
Just got my first car.
Name years in 2016. No.
I don't know. What year is this? 20, 25?
I didn't ask your wife. I don't ask
46.
46.
Yeah.
Not bad either. It's probably the lack of abusing yourself with drugs and alcohol. Let me know how that works. Mavdick 1996 said that. Okay, we also have Bloodshot 67 said, hello. Will you have Lucas Gage at your studio someday? Yeah, Lucas Gage is welcome to come on the studio. I would just ask him, like, hey, probably shouldn't be burning flags in the studio. You know what I'm saying? But I like Lucas. I think he's mistreated. Do you know Lucas Gage?
Not personally, no.
No, do you know
I've
about
heard
him?
the name on Twitter.
He's like, is he deleted now or what's going on there?
No, he's on Twitter.
Lucas is
He's
a
chilling.
funny guy. He's a veteran. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Homer J. Fuentes, got to put the chat on Anna over here. Get some music. $50. $50 to the woman cam for $50.
The woman cam.
Oh, you thought we were going to do Anna cam? Let's get the real woman, black woman, Jay Dyer, a man of myth, the legend, $50. Says, Chad agrees that Anna is a 9 out of 9. Spelled N-E-I-N.
A no out of no?
Is that what that means? Well,
maybe he's a married man and he's
that's
being faithful.
in which case I support that.
Yeah. Good job,
Can't
man.
hate.
A 9 or a German
It's a
9 out
German
of 9?
9 out of 9.
Yeah,
Oh.
German. Mhm.
Yeah, there's that. Okay, I want to mention just one, a couple small things here because everyone seems, these guys had a long drive. Everyone seems very tired, which is fine, but you're pulling through. Part of being a dad or a parent is this. This morning, my son, Superman, and jumped onto me like 1 a.m, slept in my bed with me, and then also grabbed his gun today, and at 5:30 in the morning, just went, smashed it over the top of my head. So I've had a great night's sleep. I wanted to go over this story here that I think is really important. Representative Anna Paulina Luna reminded us one thing, that while we're fighting about immigration and we're also fighting about Israel, our country has problems. You didn't know about that? She said that, Congress has never even subpoenaed George Soros. The story is that she made an X post, which is probably the majority of right-wing news these days. That's what we report on, But she was saying, George Soros has been funding the destruction of our country for a very long time. The summary of this was that, we know about his money, but like Epstein, why has no one done anything about it? If he's undermining our democracy, if he's literally paying judges to be corrupt, he's, hijacking campaigns, and he's at a local level. Everyone knows Soros, if you're not familiar, is funding campaigns at local levels to get judges and DAs in different counties to be light on crime. All these criminal problems are largely his Open Society Foundation and what he's doing. That's my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong, but he's a huge coordinator, and Alex Soros, his son, who just married Huma Abedin.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Huma Abedin.
Well, it's easy.
She's like a million years old too.
Yeah, but
compared to
I'm
him.
saying she asked why they haven't, and I want to play a video here of something that he said, and then I want to talk about this, like why you think Soros, I have my own opinion, why he's not been investigated. She wants to open an investigation, congressional, into this man and his foreign influence watch.
George Soros, pleasure to have you on.
Same here.
First, on Ukraine, one of the things that many people recognized about you was that you, during the revolutions of 1989, funded a lot of dissident activity, civil society groups in Eastern Europe, in Poland, the Czech Republic. Are you doing similar things in Ukraine?
Well, I set up a foundation in Ukraine before Ukraine became independent of Russia. And the foundation has been functioning ever since. And it played an important part in events now.
Do you think Ukraine will be able to assert a kind of independence from Russia and an alignment with the West, not a specific alignment as in NATO, but a kind of orientation toward the West, or will the Russians always stop them?
No, Putin will try to destabilize Ukraine. The foundation has been functioning ever since, and it played an important part.
So, long story short, this guy's been in it for a long time. I know what your opinion. Do you think Soros is a boogeyman? That he's some sort of like figure to the right, as like they make Trump a boogeyman? I think this guy's legit. Like, I think he's really behind a lot of the stuff.
No, he is. It's in fact, it's well known if you read, say, Ingdahl's book, Full Spectrum Dominance, where he goes into the history of color revolutions and the fact that back in the 1980s, when you had a shift under Reagan away from the older CIA coup model, they went under the cover of NGOs, humanitarian aid organizations, think tanks, and foundations to do what the CIA used to do. So now the CIA operates through things like Open Society Institute. And so the reason that Soros will never get in trouble is that all those color revolutions to remake all the former Soviet countries into open neoliberal markets was, according to Soros himself, done by Soros himself and his institute. In fact, there's a video clip you should find. It's really good, where he laughs about the former Soviet empire is now the Soros empire because of the color revolutions.
Okay, so let me, by the way, get Brian ready real fast, because we're going to cut on YouTube and on Rumble and X in a second. Just go over to Locals for the overtime segment here on these couple stories. But you know, as we transition into there, I want to make sure that you guys first plug to the audience where they can find and follow you as we continue to talk about Soros. So Anna, if people want to support you and they want to follow you, what's the best place they can follow you as we go over to our Locals only segment?
You can find me at wrongthinkanna_ on Twitter, and you can also find me on Instagram. I just unprivated my account. It's just Anna Perez.
Yeah, and you can see that right there on the screen, full screen there. You can see her account, wrongthinkanna. If you're on audio, it's WRONGTHINKANNA_. Ben, if people want to find and follow you, how can they do so?
Yeah, for me on X, at Orthodox Luigi, and then on Instagram at lang.luigi. Those are my two main platforms.
Yep, and you can see it. Wait. Oh, we're on the other account. Do I not follow you? That's kind of sad. Okay, I'll follow you back. My bad. Monarchist, poor excuse. It's Orthodox Luigi, ORTHODOXLUIGI. Check that out there. And yeah, he's growing nicely. Now he's got one new follower. You should be one too. And Jay, how could what you have some books that you're selling? Again, we're gonna go to our overtime segment, so don't go anywhere. Go to Locals. Today it's gonna be free. You can totally watch it for free. So you don't have to pay for it. You just go over to Locals and watch it. The link's in the description, so don't get afraid. You can go in the overtime. How can they support you? And also plugging your books. I know you got these two books, you're an author, and we want to support you.
Yeah, you can find me at my website, jaysanalysis.com. It has all my archived stuff there for the last 10 years, all the talks, lectures, interviews that I've done. 2 Hollywood books, Esoteric Hollywood 1 and 2. The third one's coming out in a month. You can get the pre-orders in the shop at my website. You can I have other books as well. My wife's books are in the bookstore at my website. You can follow me at Jason at YouTube under my name. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all of those. Most Fridays, not every single Friday, 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show, and check out the Sam Hyde Show.
Hell yeah. And by the way, you can check him out there. It's JAY_D007. So D007. I don't know that bra size.
I didn't know bras had sizes.
Yeah, well, they do. 34D or D007. It comes with a shot. But by the way, the new James Bond's supposed to be black, so that's really cool. There's a few of the cultural things we're going to touch on. We're going to kind of go through speed, like 4 or 5
Now I
things.
can be Bond.
Hell yeah, brother. Hell yeah. Well, happy Juneteenth. All right, to the rest of you guys watching right now, head over to ElijahSchaefer.locals.com. I think we have it right there. Yeah, ElijahSchaefer.locals.com. We got about another 15 minutes that we're going to be going over a few like quick stories and talk about our opinion, some cultural stuff and what's happening, and kind of going forward for the rest of our shows. We're pretty much going to be doing our last overtime segment just there. It's free to join, and for the time being, we're not requiring you to have a membership to watch the overtime segment. You just got to put in, I think, your email and watch. But I appreciate you guys going over there. So we'll be right back. We're putting the screen up, and we'll see you in about 2 or 3 minutes real fast over for the last 15 minutes of the show. We'll be right back.